just a ride. Whoa, oh, it's just a ride.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and anything in between, welcome to Just a Ride.
Just a ride.
Number 33.
Yay. It's a Larry Bird.
It's a Larry Bird.
It's Alonzo Mourning. It's the Patrick Waugh. It's the Frank Robinson. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, those are all humans, I assume.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was number 33. They're all number 33. Larry Walker, Mike Piazza.
That's exactly how many beers I need to get drunk. If it's light beer.
Exactly.
So now that we've associated our show with sports ball, hi.
How's everybody doing?
Doing good. We got a special guest today.
We do. This is
2 weeks in a row.
Jennifer McKenzie, also known as the Keto RN or Ketogenics on Instagram. And also my sister.
That's the main thing. No.
That's me.
That's it.
Hello, everybody.
Yay. We're excited to talk
Thanks
to
for
you.
having me.
Thank you for being here.
I am Bear.
I am the Poobah.
And I'm the Peebaw.
And she is also Fur Bear.
Fur Bear.
I was growing up. That's hilarious.
That is so funny that you guys are both
So
bears,
funny.
and I love it. So we're going to call you Fur Bear if you don't mind for the rest of the show.
You're
It
Fur
works.
Bear.
I'll answer
You
to
need
it.
one more bear in the family, and then Goldilocks can come and take your guys' porridge. Jeff's will be too hot, not
I don't
temperature-wise.
eat
It'll just be
porridge.
full of siracha.
You don't eat porridge? No. Well, then we're going to
Too
give
many
yours
carbs.
away. Yeah.
You wouldn't have cared if Goldilocks was there. It's like, fucking eat it. It's not even good. All right. Well, we have lots of
You're
stuff
going to
we
end up with
want to...
diabetes if you eat that. Just don't.
Well, you have a science background,
I do.
and so we're going to definitely grill you with science questions all day.
Wait.
But you're a nurse.
Every answer
right?
I'm a
better be
nurse, yes.
extremely accurate, too.
I will do my best. It's been a long time since I was in nursing school, but yeah, I've been a nurse. It'll be 34 years this year. So.
Well,
All right,
that's
so name-
34 years
I
more
started
than
when
any
I
of
was
us.
10.
All right. Name all the nutrients in a cell. No, I'm just kidding.
I
All
can't
right.
do that.
Me either.
What is a mitochondria?
I
It's
know
the
that
powerhouse of this. Yay!
So, yeah, a little bit of your background. You were a nurse for how many years
one.
already?
I've been a nurse since 1989. That's when I graduated nursing school. I was 10. Just kidding. Yeah, and I have spent my career doing women's and children's healthcare.
That's right.
So,
And you did, you were, what I used to say it was a nipple Nazi, but what that's really called is what?
A lactation consultant.
Yes.
20 years.
Yeah. And
like-
she was a Spokane hometown hero.
I was. Gosh, what a memory.
He's
think
very
that was-
proud of you. He
yeah,
is.
I
He
know.
just talks about you all the time.
I think that was 2009 or 10. It was a while ago.
And why did you get that?
Because I started a donor milk program in the NICU at the hospital that I was working at the time. Well, I'm still working there, but I had a neonatologist, which is a NICU doctor, approach me about it. And I wasn't the only one that was involved. I had just been talking about it the longest, I think. And so myself, that physician, 2 dietitians, a nurse manager, there was a lot of people involved, but I had a friend who put the nomination forward or whatever, and for me, so
That's awesome.
it was an honor. It was actually really amazing.
That's very
But anyway, that program that you
So-
started, that still goes on
Still
today.
going. Yep. So I worked in the NICU as a lactation consultant for 9 years, and then I left that particular role 5 years ago. But it's still going on.
Right. And as I recall, you were one of very few within the nation that did that. Is that right? Was it just in the area? Maybe I was wrong about that.
No, not the nation. No, there's lactation consultants everywhere, but I was the only NICU lactation. So NICU being premature and sick babies, lactation consultant in the city and actually in the region. So I would get calls from Idaho, and Montana, other hospitals, seeking out advice or whatever for how to treat their moms or their babies. And so it was good. It was a great job, actually. I loved
What
it.
got you in that field? Were you a science fan growing up?
Oh, into nursing?
Yeah.
I knew when I was 4 that I wanted to be a nurse. I don't know why I knew that, but it was just something that I always wanted to do. And so I got mediocre grades in high school. I applied to one college. They let me in, and
Then you straightened up and flied right.
yeah, I mean, nursing school's hard, and
Yeah.
it's really hard now. I mean, it's so much harder now than it was when I graduated. I don't know that I could do it, but but yeah, I just always knew I wanted to be a nurse. It was, and I don't know, I think it can be a calling.
Yeah.
And that's how
At
it's
4 years
always
old, it
felt
feels like
to
it
me.
might.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just, it's it's been a really great career. I've enjoyed it.
If you
Yeah.
wouldn't have been a nurse, if you didn't have that calling at 4, is there what alternative career path would you have taken, do you think?
Gosh. I wanted to be a singer too when I was like 6.
I don't recommend that career path. By the way.
Right.
Unlike Zach and I, she chose
That's smart.
Chose
Zach.
wisely.
has a good livelihood.
Let's compare bank accounts. I'd say you did fine, and we didn't do good.
Now, I think if I could go back to school, I would love to do a whole lot more on advertising and nutrition.
Ooh.
There you go.
Right, which
interesting
leads
combo.
into some other things that you're doing, which we're going to talk about all the stuff and things. But you also, like I said, you're the Keto RN.
I am the Keto RN.
So you want to make commercials for like Reese's Pieces and stuff? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
no.
All right, wait. I have a question before we leave the subject entirely because I'm ignorant and I want to learn. A lactation consultant, is that like a sommelier for breast milk? Like you just come in and you're like, this
That's
is an excellent vintage taste of memories and coconut.
Samples.
swinging it around the glass, smelling it?
No, I didn't.
But
I
jokes
didn't do
aside,
any of that.
what is that?
So that is somebody who generally has an RN background, but certainly doesn't have to. That assists women in breastfeeding their babies, overcoming issues. It's not easy for everybody, and there's a lot of things that can go sideways.
What are the
And
most common things?
So, oh gosh, well, I think people. Oh gosh, that's such a loaded question. There are so
I'm ignorant, so I don't know what I'm doing.
right,
bro.
Well, I mean, you can just talk physically. Like, there can be issues with latch that can be based on the mother's anatomy, that can be based on the baby's anatomy. There are commitment issues. You know, people.
Don't want to feed the baby.
It's not that they don't want to feed their babies. It's just it's a big commitment and it's
Yeah,
hard,
okay.
and maybe they don't have all the education they need. So my role was a teacher in so many ways, teaching women, you know, why they should do this, how they should do this, and how it's a good thing, you know. And
So you mentioned donors for breast milk, right? Is that so? I didn't realize that was even a thing.
yeah, so you can, if you are a mother who has maybe an overabundant milk supply, or we've also had bereaved mothers who have lost their infants, but they want to pump to honor their baby that didn't survive, pump for a period of time, and then donate that to a milk bank. And there's milk banks all over the country. So the milk banks collect milk from all of these women who are pumping for different reasons, and they pasteurize the milk and then they bottle it and package it for NICUs and pediatric units and places that can use the product.
So would that be for like babies that lost their mothers, or are mothers sometimes
It can
not
be
able
adoptive
to, or-
babies.
I see.
It can be mothers who, I mean, you know, sometimes we have moms who are in a bad, involved with drugs, and they can't breastfeed, but they have a 25-week infant who's not going to do well if we feed them formula. Like their gut is just really too immature. Their gut really should be having amniotic fluid, but that's gone. So the next best thing is, you know, mother's milk. And if it can't be their own mother's milk, then we want it to be somebody else's milk. And so it's a program that's been going on for a long, long time. I think people
Very
would be
important.
surprised. I mean, it's the modern day wet nursing. Right?
Yeah.
Except this milk is pasteurized, and you have to become a donor. You have to go through they have to do blood tests, and there's a lot of medical screening and that sort of thing.
And they're compensated for it, like blood banks?
I
or-
think so. Yes. I mean, I don't remember because like I said, I've been out of it for about 5 years. But at the time I left, I think they were getting about $1 an ounce.
So not much.
Not as much as heroin.
And not as much
Right.
as blood either.
But I don't know. I think that was with some of the more private milk banks. Ones that are more publicly owned,
Donations.
women are it's just altruism. Yeah. They just do it because they
'Cause
can
and
and
they
they
understand.
are committed to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
So as far as the science of between a bottle and breastfeeding, I'm sure there's plenty of literature on that. One of the things that I've heard and I've looked into and stuff is that the only thing a person can do to give their child any kind of increase in IQ is breastfeed.
It's brain food. Yes.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. And what's interesting is so human milk has more lactose than any other mammalian milk on the planet.
No shit.
Yeah, and
With
we
goats
also
being close, right? Goats are
have
the next one.
I don't know, but we also have the biggest brains, and so they and all of the right fats. You know, I mean, it's a complicated substance, but breast milk is living tissue. It's alive like your blood, and it's so funny talking to these three men about breastfeeding.
We're all like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
I know. It's like usually we're interrupting each other. We're like, yeah, tell us more.
We've been listening. We just talked over a musician for the last 2 hours, a couple hours ago.
It is amazing. The more you take the time to learn about human milk, the more fascinating it is, I think.
really
I mean,
is, yeah.
it was really amazing. But
Well, it's an immune boost. It's basically like your
Yep.
first set of shots, right?
yeah, you ask a rancher what happens to the calf that doesn't get that colostrum, that early milk from its mama cow.
They don't last long, do they?
They don't last long. No. And so it's all important, and the milk we feed our babies comes to them in the right order. Colostrum has about 10 million live cells per milliliter.
Wow.
So like I said, it's dynamic. It's alive like your blood. And every cell, and there's so many cells, every cell in it has a purpose in that infant's brain, biology, organs, blood. I mean,
Should I be drinking
it's
breast milk as an adult?
I know. No, but we shouldn't be drinking cow's milk either.
No, we shouldn't.
No.
Can you talk to us about what's the difference between formula, and if all formulas are equal, and then the breast milk? Like, if you could tell a woman, you know, I don't want to breastfeed, what advice would you give them from that point?
Well, I always tell them that the way they choose to feed their baby is up to them, and I'm not
Right.
here to convince anybody to do anything that they're not
comfortable with,
or whatever. But let's see. Well, breast milk is alive, and if the best example I ever saw, and this is back when I was just kind of learning about all of this, was they showed that I was at a lecture, and they showed what formula looked like on a slide under a microscope. And then they showed what breast milk looked like on a slide under a microscope.
It was night
And
and
the
day.
formula was beige, you know, and there was maybe 1 or 2 cells. But the breast milk, they had dyed it blue, you know, so that you could see the cells. But it was like this, it was beautiful,
An
actually.
ecosystem.
These different sort of cells and different sizes, and looked like all of these beautiful, like, blue bubbles. It's on the internet. You can find the picture. It's stunning. And I was just really impactful. So, and formula's formula is absolutely necessary. You know, there are lots of reasons that women aren't able to breastfeed, or babies that get adopted, and, you know, babies that can't tolerate breast milk. I mean, there's so many reasons. So it absolutely has to be part of our culture. But I think what makes me the craziest is that it costs more to make the container that they put it in than it does to make the powder itself.
Oh, wow.
And so that is hard for me. You know, it's like, it's great to have, but it's not the number one thing, and, you know, for your baby, and it's just highway robbery.
Back up. So there are babies that, even though the way that we're designed, we're born, we should be able to have our mother's milk, but there's babies that can't tolerate their mother's milk as well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there are babies that are born with, like, inborn errors of metabolism, and it's rare. But there are babies that can't, because they don't have a protein or an enzyme.
That's really interesting.
In their body that can digest it, and yeah, I mean, like I said, it's exceedingly rare. There are other babies that have, I don't know. I mean, I think that we don't understand enough, and a lot of breast milk is made by the mother's diet, and so if her diet is, you know, super dairy laden or whatever, then the baby can develop a milk protein allergy to cow's milk, and so she could give up dairy, but sometimes it's just easier to not breastfeed anymore, or whatever. You know, I mean, I don't live their lives, so I don't make decisions for them. But
So is there any loss of that nutritional value in like donated breast milk, or is
There
it pretty,
is, yeah. When they pasteurize it, they lose some of the like lysosomes and other important cells. But why it's important in a newborn gut is, I mean, we're starting to actually hear more about the gut-brain connection, or the axis. I don't know if you guys have heard about it just recently, just because of our terrible American diet. But I've been hearing about it for years as a lactation consultant, attending conferences and that sort of thing. But they talk about the gut-brain axis in neonates, and when you have an extremely immature gut, it's not meant to digest cow's milk.
Right.
Like, it's just not. Cow's milk is for calves,
Yes.
not human babies.
We're the
And
only
so,
creature that does that on the earth.
Right.
It's very strange.
Right. And so, like, you wouldn't feed a bat whale milk.
I mean, I want to try now that you mentioned it.
I might.
I just want to try and feed a bat.
Hold my beer.
We just talked last episode about bats being lit on fire to being used as weapons. So I mean, between the two, I'd rather give them different animal milk.
Yeah, see what happens.
But anyway, so their gut is too immature to digest those heavy proteins and molecules and those sorts of things. And so what happens is it causes inflammation. And so that inflammation becomes systemic, and it can go anywhere in their body, but they were finding that it was going to their brains.
Yeah.
And it was causing brain bleeding. And brain bleeding is just never a good thing, especially when you're a neonate.
You don't say.
Right?
Doesn't seem like
So-
something that would happen. Yeah.
So it's so they were having these extraordinary rates with these babies that were having brain bleeds, and there's so much literature now about, you know, when human babies get human milk, regardless of whether or not it's their mothers. I mean, their mothers is always going to be first choice, but if they're given even 50% breast milk and 50% artificial milk, then they have a less time in the NICU. They have less time on IV nutrition. They have, I mean, less everything that's bad, right? Less brain bleeding, less gut issues, less retinopathy of prematurity, which is eye issues, less demand for oxygen, less days in the hospital overall, less readmission rate. I mean, it's
essential.
and it's free.
Really, it's just-
that's the thing, is that it is free. You know, I mean, I used to get really angry because insurance companies wouldn't want to cover the cost of a breast pump. The breast pump for a year was about $900. And to be in the NICU for a day is $5,000.
Wow.
So if we can get a baby out of the hospital a day early, they're
$4,900 a head.
$4,100
$4,100.
a head.
Yeah.
Well,
For
Jennifer,
one day.
the insurance companies really need that money. You know? Like, they don't have any to spare.
I wonder.
Exactly.
Is that a can of worms? How do you like how they do the money thing in hospitals? Is that something you're paying a lot of attention to? Smiley, happy?
I just try to keep my head down and do my job.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Good answer.
Make
Good
my
answer.
patients
Great
happy.
political answer. I love that.
I'm there for the science. I'm there for the people. God damn it. You guys do the bullshit.
And we're going to get into your exit out of nursing here in a little bit too.
Yeah.
Talk about that, and then just kind of talk about your journey of life and something that you've newly discovered in your life. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. We're going to go through some of our standard stuff.
We're going to do some standard stuff.
We want you to
Thanks for the crash
jump
course
in
in lactation science, though. That's I
really do
had
feel like
no
our listeners
idea
would
I
be
would
very-
be as fascinated.
I learned.
as ended
I have
up
to
being.
say,
Me either.
So, and my sister. I mean, I watched her have 3. I didn't physically watch her. I wasn't in the room, but I have 3 wonderful 2 nieces and a nephew, and. You know me, I crack jokes about everything, but I really obviously didn't know what the fuck I was talking about, because my sister would breastfeed them for like a long time, a lot of years, and I'm just like, what are you going to stop when you get like whisker burn or what? Now, like I understand now, like I would be giving my kid breast milk till they were 18.
As
Like,
long
no,
as
I
you can.
don't want you to be dumb. Yeah, drink.
I
your
think
breast
it's
milk.
only after the first. It's not very long with the breast milk for the brain development, from what I understand. I mean, sure. It's the complete cycle. You
About
need.
2 years.
Is it 2 years?
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So what
And
do I
that's
know?
not long.
No,
So
that's
can I
the
just
thing.
tell one quick story?
Yeah.
So I remember when my oldest was born, I lived in that house in Portland, and you came over to see me, and it was a nice day because she was born in December, so she was like 7 months old. So what's that, June or July? And we went and we sat out on my front porch, and she was hungry, so I was going to nurse, and you're like, oh, I've got another story too. You're like, are you going to do that here? I'm like, it's my front porch.
This is
Yes, I
what
am.
I like to do. Yeah, this is the most comfortable place for me.
Or,
Just calm down,
okay,
you
can I just tell
Luddite.
one more story?
I was young. This has got to be another one at my expense.
Okay,
I'm
one more story, and then I'll be done.
Chomping at the bit.
So with our second daughter, we were here in Spokane, and we went to a
Silverwood.
restaurant, and no, that wasn't Silverwood.
Oh, okay.
I don't even remember that one, but I'm sure it's a good one. And my baby was probably 8 days old. I mean, she was little, and we were in these high booths, so nobody could really see in, but I was sitting next to my husband, and I had the baby, and we had a toddler somewhere, and then Jeff, and I don't remember who you were with, were over across the table from me, and I was going to feed the baby, and I was really good. I was very discreet. It wasn't like I was taking off my shirt. You know?
Right.
I was very discreet, but
Just waving it over your head.
we were in an Italian restaurant, and so they had the bread in the basket and the nice napkin.
Adults should be able to handle this. I'm just throwing this out there without
agree.
knowing what the story is going to go. But Jeff,
Yeah.
adults should be able to handle some.
It was
out in
really
public.
cute.
I was not an adult then.
It was really cute. So anyway, so I'm getting ready to feed her, and he takes the napkin out of the bread basket, like the rolls go flying. You're like, did you want a cover? And you're handing me the napkin all square, like in a square, like put it on my chest so that nobody would see a nipple or something offensive like that. But it was hilarious. Anyway,
Which,
okay, I'm done.
and my opinions on that have totally changed over the years because
Thank goodness.
I wouldn't care. Quite honestly, it's like if someone's going to breastfeed their baby, I'm like, it's just like asking, do you want to see my boob? Yeah, I do. Not necessarily my sister's, but
Right.
But you've seen him a lot because I
Yeah.
breastfed a long time.
For 2 years is how
Yeah.
long to breastfeed
So,
for to fully do its thing.
That is the American Family Practice Association recommendation.
Okay.
Is minimum of 2 years. The World Health Organization is 4.
Oh wow, what's the
That's
max?
the World Health Organization, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it's the whole world. There are countries that have less food, so they
For
depend
sure.
on their mothers for longer.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
that seems reasonable and rational as far as that goes.
Yeah.
I actually said the WHO did something reasonable. And
I know,
rational.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, you want
That's
Back in the
weird,
day.
crazy. Is there any? What is the maximum? Like, what is too long? If you're latched on at 14, you're probably too long.
Well, I mean that crosses a line. I would think, but I don't know. I mean, it's really about the relationship between the mother and the child, and they get to decide what
I think
works
you're
for them.
I think you're looking at Oedipus complex at that point.
Yeah, maybe.
So
I mean, my
I
son
think what
was
I'm
older.
asking is should we be drinking breast milk as adults?
No.
Okay.
No,
So
because
there's a point
there-
where it's not good for you anymore.
yeah, all mammals wean.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's not good for you. I think it's amazing for you, but it's not something that needs to be a part of your diet. But
I could put it on my
yeah.
Captain Crunch and it wouldn't be a huge issue.
I mean, you're not going to die from it.
Well, if I drank breast milk over Mountain Dew, it would probably be
I would choose the breast milk
Okay.
over Mountain Dew.
makes sense. I
Yeah,
would
I mean,
too.
at least
now,
there's some nutrition.
without knowing what I knew before.
Yeah.
You know what?
Still-
I'm thinking of a
I'll mix them
business here.
together into a shot.
Like chocolate,
That's the
strawberry.
real Mountain Dew. Sorry, I don't know why I went there. I don't know why I went
Such
there.
a child. That's awesome.
Hey, we've done 32 of these episodes. I've
know.
been a child the whole time. Just because your sister's here doesn't mean I don't get to be a
I
child.
expect you to be a child still. She's had to grow up with me, so
Yeah.
yeah, speaking of that, do you have lots of embarrassing stories about Jeff?
No, those are the best ones.
I was telling the story about when I dropped my glasses in the yogurt. Luciana just got glasses.
Oh, she did.
They're so cute.
I bet.
And I was explaining to Polly about, because it looked, I asked Lucy yesterday, I'm like, did the person, I'm like, did your friend just like sneeze in your face or what? Because your glasses are covered with all kinds of shit. and then I had to explain that I had dropped my glasses in the yogurt at breakfast, and I just literally just licked them off and put them back on my face.
And I think I was 10, and I said, "What is all over your glasses?" And you said, "Well, yogurt."
Like, okay.
Obviously.
Did you wash them? No, I just licked them. I'm like, go wash them. Like an older sister should.
I'd love to hear these stories. Let's turn these microphones off and let's just grill her about your past, Jeff. All right, well, usually we start off differently than how we did today. It's where Shaiden and I go. Police stories. There's the news stories. Jeff gets the stories. He's gonna get you down.
Run, motherfucker, run, motherfucker, run. Run, motherfucker, run, motherfucker, run.
It gets scary. When he does that, it gets scary.
Yeah.
And plus, he looks
have
at
to
me.
come up with like a.
I don't want to run. I'm sitting.
I'm literally eyeballing Zach when I'm doing that.
I'm having a podcast.
Starting to get up.
Jeff was sitting at home between our last recording session and now thinking, how can I make them more uncomfortable when they do that?
Usually, it just mocks us for us not doing it as well as we probably could, I guess.
Yeah, but that's part of the charm.
I think so.
All
It's
right,
bad
yeah.
on purpose.
So Sis probably doesn't know this
If you want us to
story.
harmonize it real good, we will.
Sis probably doesn't know this story. This wasn't, well.
The title of this one is Hammer Broke.
Yeah. So this was the day that I should have been shot at work, and I got really, really, really lucky.
The only day?
Well, this one was definitely confirmed.
For sure.
Yeah.
Shot, yeah.
So it was a simple call. I got a call of male and female that were just doing a vehicle prowl. They were stealing shit out of somebody's vehicle. And I happened to be the first one into the area, and I see a male and a female walking. And, of course, as I pull up, they split off. And the male starts walking to a known shithead house. So I'm calling out my location where I'm at, throwing my car into park. And as I'm getting out, I saw that he was digging in his pockets as I'm starting to get out.
was a good sign.
And, you know, as you kind of get out, you just because of that little A-frame on the door, you lose sight. So I kind of lost sight of him for a second. There's trees and stuff too, but I lost sight of him for a second. And I get out and I'm like, hey, you need to stop. And then I hear this metal clanging on the ground. And I'm like, oh, he just dropped the stereo. I'm like, get over here now. Well, the dude ends up running out of the yard and running from me, essentially. I'm in a foot pursuit. Mm-hmm. And what was awesome was he was running. Of all the options of places he had to run, he decided to stay in the road. So he just ran down the middle of the road.
So
and a couple things happened.
Like in the
on
movies
this.
when something's chasing them and they could go to the side or down, but
he
they
was
just keep going
yeah.
straight to make the movie work.
And for a bigger guy, I can run forever. And so on a long enough timeline, I'm probably going to catch you. I'm not exactly fast, but a long enough time I'm going to get. But anyway, this guy just stayed in there. I'm like, oh, the rule is as long as you keep them in sight, you're good to go. If they get around a corner of a house or something, just stop because you don't want them to shoot you in the face when you come around the corner. Right. So this guy stayed running down the road. Well, first off, we had just gotten brand new radios. We went from analog to digital, and they gave us these shitty radio holders. So I'm sitting here and I'm trying to call out this foot pursuit that I'm in, and usually you can hear sirens and people coming. I noticed it. There was no sounds, and things didn't feel right. Well, my radio holder, the battery attached on the bottom of the radio, the battery fell off. Oh no! Fell off of my mic. Of my
the metal clanging on the ground?
No. We'll get there. So it fell out. So here I am calling out a foot pursuit on my handheld mic, and it's not getting out because I don't have a battery. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm on my own. I can still see him. He ran basically till the road teed, and he climbs over a fence. And in my mind, I did this awesome Superman jump over the fence, but I probably didn't. I probably climbed over it like an old man. He was just tired. But get into the yard. Now I've got the guy on the ground. Now he wants to fight. I know nobody's coming. I don't have a radio. So what else is there to do? I punched him until he stopped moving. I knocked him unconscious and got him handcuffed. This fence was only about 3 feet high. I remember unconscious, I had to fling the guy back over the fence. And I'm literally dragging him back to my car because I got to get that. I don't want to let go of him, but I got to get to my car to get on the radio. Mm-hmm. And I drug him about 2 blocks down the road, unconscious. Dude. And then finally, one of my partners, the guy who was responding to the call with me, shows up. He's like, what, you don't answer your radio? He's like, what do you... And then he realizes what I'm doing. He's like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, well, this guy's unconscious. My radio battery popped out. I said, I think he stole the stereo out of the truck. Go up to this residence, and it's going to be right on the walkway. And I said, I'll just stay here with this guy. Get on the radio, have medics come check him out, and then go see if the stereo's up there. So he does all that. I'm sitting there babysitting this dude who's unconscious. And...
who you're having some sympathy for at this moment. You're like, I probably didn't have to. No.
I mean,
I know what's coming.
He wanted to fight.
I know.
Anyway, So my buddy goes up there, and he comes back, and his eyes are about the size of dinner plates. And he's like, "That wasn't a stereo." I'm like, "What was it?" And he brings out a 38, a loaded 38, that had a hammer on it. And the guy had tried to shoot me, and he pulled the hammer back, and it was a shitty gun, and the hammer got locked back. It broke.
Dude.
So he had an opportunity to shoot me and tried to shoot me, and the gun just didn't go off.
Less sympathy for him now that he's past it. Yeah. Dude.
The shitty part about that is the guy that found the gun ultimately left law enforcement to get into nursing before the trial. And because he wasn't available to testify of finding the gun,
Oh, no.
even though I would have found it going over there, they dropped the case.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so
the
guy walked free. And he had already had a homicide in Alaska.
So I wonder,
that he did time.
I wonder if we could follow up on him if he's been a good boy.
Oh, I know his name. We had another encounter after that too.
Did you
that
really?
I'll tell about some other time.
Okay.
Yeah, he got knocked out again.
Police stories.
Almost getting shot. Yeah.
All right. Well, fuck. I'm glad that didn't happen.
Well, I had to tell you, after that one shook me up pretty bad. After that happened,
I think we're all a little
fact,
shook up because really that was a life.
yeah, that was a big deal. And I was
actually
I was dating Alex at the time, and it was we had just come back from bear hunting, but I had all my baits set up. So that happened, and my sergeant's like, "Hey, you need a couple days?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, I wasn't going to tell her what happened. I'm just like, "Hey, got to burn some days. I'm gonna go bear hunting." Well, what I didn't know is that they released that story on the news. So she found out about that on the news while I was in the mountains bear hunting by
she wasn't
myself.
super stoked.
She was not. She was not pleased with me.
Yeah,
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah, that's a wild feeling when you have a real close call with like a real life and death thing, and then afterwards you kind of have to like take a knee for a minute and be like, "Whoo!"
Yeah.
Like that could have been one little difference that could have been bad. I'm sure you've had more of that than me, but I was working at this lumber mill up in Canada. I was running a industrial chop saw, like pedals on the floor that made these big 14, 16-inch saw blades come up out of the table.
They wanted you to crawl into the thing. Right?
Is that
Fix
the
it.
one?
Is that one?
That was another
okay.
thing, same lumber mill, but yeah. But no, I just told him to fuck off when they told me that. But no, this one I was working night shift. I was pissed off. I had a board jammed over in my measuring guides, and the one thing they tell you right when you start doing that job is don't ever reach over top of one of these saws for any reason, no matter if it's off, doesn't matter, don't ever do it. And I was like, yeah, obviously. My dumb ass, I'm all mad, and I'm just like trying to knock this thing out with a piece of wood, and it's not going, and I'm like, God damn it. So I lean over and to give it one of these, and my boot bumped the pedal. The saw blade came up right here and stopped. Like I could feel the wind from it, and my head was leaned right over it. Like it could have just took me out right there. And I was like,
It makes you think about things.
just shut the whole thing down. And I was like, I'm taking a break.
Well, and after something like that,
Go have a
happens-
cheeseburger. It's like, this is the best cheeseburger I've ever had. What the fuck just happened?
Well, and again, for the relationship
What's
that
the
I was in
last
at the
meal?
time, there were three children involved, and here I am supposed to be the protector, and then somebody almost takes me out.
Yeah.
And you really realize how different your life is. I mean, even with the same gal and the same kids, I talked about a double homicide on, I think it was 2 shows ago that I had gone to, and then I went home and cooked eggs for the kids, and I had brains on my uniform.
Yeah.
And that's not normal, but it was my normal life, but it's not normal for other people. You just realize what a fucked up life that you live.
Yeah. Wow.
But yet it's fun at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
I think when you're a public servant like that too, you don't, like when I go home from work, I work, and work can be stressful, but I'm not dealing with stuff like that. But I am dealing with some,
You deal with death and stuff, though. a
yeah,
lot.
some death, and just, I mean, not very often, but really
Heavy
just
hearts and
people that shouldn't be having babies.
oh
Right.
gosh, yeah.
There's a lot of that, and you can't burden the ones you love with what you see. And I get floated. Like I went to the peds emergency room the other day, and I went to the adult ED as well, like twice in 2 weeks. And the things that you see there are tragic. And you as somebody that sees it, you just deal with it, or you have your own way of dealing with it. And I know when I come home from work, I'm tired, and I mean just more emotionally drained, and I don't really have a lot to say. And so my kids and my husband or whatever ask me how my day was, and I say, oh, it was fine, it was good. but I don't ever give them the details. I mean, the details of something that was really awful at work or a very sad story or whatever, those come out a few days later, because you can't burden the people that you love with the things that you see in your job. It's not fair to them. And you and I or whatever have developed coping skills or defense mechanisms or whatever to shield you from that, but they don't have them, and it's not,
you don't just get
it's
them
not
either.
fair. You
develop them.
It's not fair to burden those people.
That's an important thing to say too, because that's true not just of jobs where you have to deal with shit you have to cope with, but just with, I mean, anything that you've spent a lifetime or many, many years figuring out how to deal with on your own. And like, I mean, I've gone through some shitty things in my life that have left damage that's lingering, that some days I have whole days where I'm like, I can't, that's all I can do to just exist today. Mm-hmm. And it's tempting for me to, people try to kind of chisel their way past that sometimes, and they're just like, oh, just tell me what's going on or talk to me about it. And it's like, listen, I appreciate that, but I'm not going to because of what you just said. It's like, I'm not, me burdening you with that is not only unfair to you, even if you're asking, but it's also, it's going to make it worse for me, because then on top of what I'm dealing with, I have this knowledge that I'm like, oh, now I just made them feel like shit too, because I couldn't just handle it on my own, And
there's a part of me that appreciates the fact that I got to see what the real world is up close and personal in my career, and that's why I talk about it a lot. It was a fantastic life. Mm-hmm. It was tragic, but also very fantastic. In a circus,
good education
in a circus sense. Yeah. And part of me wants everybody in my life to really understand, no, this is really what the world is. It's not what you're showing on TV, and but that comes with a price to know that, and maybe it's not always my place to tell people what is really going on versus what we want it to be.
Right.
I guess there's a palatable way, and sometimes I'm not the best at being palatable. So.
Well,
yeah, it's a matter of balance, like everything. It's just like you gotta. There's a time to shatter people's illusions and give it to them raw, and there's a time to shield them from it.
I like to fun suck people's lives. Just let them know bad statistics that make their life different.
I definitely err on that side of the equation.
I'm a fun sucker. I've been called that for a long time. All right. Well, that was our police story. Let's do our Unfuck Yourself segment. And this one is, again, Jeff, and it's the fruit is in the seed.
The fruit is in the seed. This is not a term that I came up with, but I kind of have developed, I guess, my own analogy. And the fruit is in the seed basically means that all the good things, all the things that you want to do in your life, all the things that you want to change about yourself, all those things are actually they are already inside you. You already have the ability to make these things happen. But so the fruit is in the seed would be, take an apple seed, right? The fruit is already in there, but what do you have to do for that to happen? You've got to till the ground. You've got to water it. You've got to fertilize it. You've got to care for this seed until it starts to sprout. And then when it sprouts, you still have to continue to molest the ground and weed all around it and give it time to grow. And after a couple of years, you produce a tree that bears fruit. Well, our lives are no different within ourselves. Everything that we want to be is within us. It's there, but you have to put in that long, hard work, consistent time, over and over and over again to bear the fruit that you want from your life. And I don't know, people get impatient, I think patience is probably the hardest thing, or they just don't want to work. They want it to magically appear. But that's just the best analogy that I can give of anything that you want to change in your life, anything that you want to make it better. And it not just in the physical sense, it could be in the mental sense. It's already there, but you have to take the time to do the work before you can bear fruit. But it's not something that just magically appears.
You reap what you sow.
You've got to make it happen. What's that?
I'm just doing another vegetable analogy.
Reap the whirlwind, Zach.
I just wanted to say it.
I think there's also a lot of wisdom in planting seeds, whether you think they're going to grow or not. Like plant mini seeds. It's good to focus on the stuff that you plant, but not only inside of yourself, but within other people. Like, be in the business of anytime you see an opportunity, put a seed in the ground, you know, and maybe you water it, maybe somebody else waters it, and maybe it just happens to get rained on enough from the other shit that's going on in the field. But if you don't plant the seed, then nothing's ever going to grow. So
I brought this up in one of the videos. You know, we're doing the 75 hard, and I'm doing, except for today, I didn't do a video on my second workout. I just didn't have the time. But and you know, I have a lot of people that don't necessarily like what I'm doing. They think for some reason that I'm this mean person that's talking down to people.
I don't like what you're doing.
I don't really care if you like it or not. Your opinion of me means nothing. But that I kind of brought that up. It's like, if you're here every day watching me, but it's pissing you off, I know that I'm planting seeds within you. And at some point, you very well may tend to your garden, and what I have to say and the things that I'm showing you might come
Be useful.
You might understand it and finally get it and do something with those seeds that I'm planting in you, so to speak. And you know, we talk about a guy pretty regularly who finally admitted that.
D-Bag
to me.
McGee, yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he finally admitted that to me, that you know, as much he's like, I used to hate what you did and you used to piss me off all the time. He's like, but ultimately it's what changed me and helped me to make my decision. But you don't have to do it for other people. You can do that for yourself too.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's more important to do it for yourself, at least first. You know,
I mean,
we've talked about that.
Hating
before.
someone else does drive. It can move mountains.
Hate can move mountains for sure.
But you know, it's better to probably want to move the mountain because you feel good.
Just saying, tend your own garden before you tend someone else.
So that's my unfuck yourself for the day.
Well, thank
I
you,
don't know
bro.
if there's a whole lot to expound on that.
Good.
But
I'm gonna come pee in your garden, dude.
would you?
I'm gonna drink a bunch of Mountain Dew and come pee all over your
Could you?
sheets.
You know, actually, would you not drink? Would you bring some breast milk?
Breast milk. I was gonna say,
please.
we want a healthy
It's gonna be
garden.
the best garden.
The yields will be huge.
All right, let's talk Reasonable's party. Since we have a new guest that's never heard of our Reasonable party.
I'll let you explain it.
All right, well, let me try and explain it, I guess. We don't like government here. We've all kind of decided we're all contrarian assholes. We all kind of lean libertarian. We're like little L libertarian, just down. We're away from the totalitarian shit.
But not stuck in the hole of being so decentralized.
Probably
that there's
more
no
anarchy than
unification
anything.
at all.
Yeah, we don't want to not have a country. We don't want to not have... So I do as an anarchist, but my position is one for...
Zach is an ist.
I'm an ass.
He's an ist.
I'm an ass.
He's an assist.
Many kinds. But the Reasonable's party is we have to have government, so let's have the minimum amount that we can, or the stuff that works. The whole idea is to be reasonable. So it's not about being Democrat or Republican or, you know, European or American or whatever. It's really just like what actually works the best we can for social sciences. It's not hard. Most of these aren't hard sciences. Economics is soft science. So we're kind of guessing, but we're trying to use data and we're trying to be reasonable. And so we've gone through all of the things that you're supposed to with politics and say, like, what's our platform, you know, on these things? And we always kind of lean towards more freedom. Mm-hmm. The problem with a free country is, you know, education's important. And then, you know, I don't even know where to go with this, but basically our Reasonable's party is an attempt for normal people to kind of figure out what we think would work best for... You know, obviously, Democrats and Republicans are not doing a great job of being what they are.
Correct.
At least from our opinion.
I would agree.
Why don't we try to tackle some like food production and nutrition shit?
Okay.
For the Reasonableist Party,
Let's do it.
Should there be involvement and government oversight in things like agriculture and food production and you know, general nutrition guidelines, and if so, to what extent, and what should be the guiding principles?
Well, first we have to ask, do the guidelines work as they're intended?
What guidelines are you talking
Yeah,
about?
is this FDA? Is this, I mean, if it's...
I mean, are you talking food pyramid guidelines?
Right.
Because we could really talk about that.
Go off, Jennifer. Let's hear it.
let's start real
Come
basic.
on, Fur Bear.
How do you guys, all three of everyone, how do you guys think that the government represents science? How do you think they communicate science, and how do you feel like the government gives confidence to people when it comes to their scientific declarations? Do you trust the government scientifically?
No, because I mean,
shouldn't we?
I don't even trust the science anymore. Yeah, that's what I don't even trust scientists on science at this point.
Yes,
but I mean, I don't want to fall into this trap of painting science as though it is this, like, you know, altar to be worshipped at, or this, this magical 8 ball that you can pull off of the shelf and go, oh, what are the answers to this? Science, tell me. It's like
Peer review and falsification is pretty fucking awesome.
Science's job is to continually prove itself wrong in the pursuit of better knowledge, So like by inherently, you can't just take whatever the current science is at face value and go, that's it. That must be the answer. It's only the answer until proven otherwise.
Isn't that the idea? That exactly. They're like, yeah, this is the best guess for now, but we're probably wrong. I think it's mostly what science is.
But with testing, so that they can have some empiricism behind that too. There's differences that we've talked about on SKATCAST quite a few times, where corporate science has a hint of, everybody that wants to be a scientist, I imagine, I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, just like science, just wanted to be a scientist. They might like money too, but science isn't the best place to make money. But when you work for, say, a corporation, there may be pressures from a company or an industry to fudge the science, or maybe you don't have control and you just make science, and then I'm talking about science ridiculously, but they take your science, the science, and they manipulate it how you want. And as consumers, we know that that's possible. We have things like the FDA. We have all sorts of different measures to try and protect that. But then we have government science, which I think is worse than corporate science, because then it's not about, like, at least in the profit market world, like if their science is off, we as consumers can be like, your science is off and those guys are died and you're sued. But the government, when their science is off, it's like, who the fuck do you sue? Who's accountable to the bad science? Yeah. So to me, like, the political agendas make science even worse, because a lot of times people will ignore facts just to get the agenda out. And with corporations, it's about making money, and so there's corners cut and stuff like that. But there's no other way to get science, really, other than people that go to college and are doing science or writing their dissertations and all that stuff. There's not like a lot of like private science that's just by itself and funded well and all that stuff. So I don't know. We're kind of in a weird position where we need to trust science, because that is the best thing to understand the reality of the world, in the material world of material things. But we don't know where whose agenda is behind what we're hearing.
Well, the thing,
that was wordy for no reason.
If you're gonna try and live by whatever the good science on any given thing is, getting it from social media or a news corporation or your friend Bill or especially the government is not the way to go about it, because you're going to be getting a diluted, filtered, slanted, skewed, or perhaps outright false understanding of the data, if there is even any data being supplied other than this is what scientists say. It's like, okay, which scientists? Like, if you really want to learn the science of something, it unfortunately takes some legwork on your part, which can be fucking exhausting.
Do your own research. It's like, go to college for 5 years to become
at least go and read the abstract of a couple of studies on the thing that you're trying to figure out before you develop an opinion.
But don't find those studies on Google.
No.
So that kind of brings me to another. What is it that women that are pregnant should take? And it's like a simple supplement.
Folic acid.
Folic acid. Yeah. Talk about that a little bit. Well, I mean,
that was a study,
right? But didn't the
we don't trust it, Jeff.
They actually stopped the study early. It happened, I think it was in Europe. I don't know where. I can't really recall. It was a double-blind study. They gave women, and I'm not sure at what point. I mean, it was maybe before their first trimester, so before they were actually pregnant, or early in their first trimester. I don't know. I don't know the details, so don't quote me.
We're holding you to it, though. I
know, right?
For sure, yeah.
But they gave women who were newly pregnant pills, and somebody, you either got the medication or the folate, or you didn't. And what they were looking at was not spinal cord injuries, but spinal development. I can't think. There's a word for it, but
spina bifida or something.
Spina bifida is one of the neural tube defects. That's what it is. And so they were looking. They were finding so overwhelmingly in this double-blind study, which is the only valid study, is a double-blind study, that the women who were taking the folic acid or the folate had significantly less neural tube defects than the women who didn't. So they stopped the study early and gave everybody folic acid or folate, and that's still the current recommendation.
Right in the middle of a study. I like it.
Yeah, they stopped it because it was
That's
You're
actually
right,
kind
though.
of cool. They're like, it's
Double-blind
so
study is the
conclusive.
only
Double-blind
valuable-
random.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. It's the only one that
randomized.
doesn't get the human element all fucking.
and you need to
also
know
want
who's
to
doing
look
the
at.
planning.
You also want to look
Yes.
at who's conducting them and what the sample group size is too. Because I mean, if you're talking like, we did it
Dude.
on 8 people, it's like, okay,
That's why-
can that possibly be representative of a vast demographic of humanity?
No. Answer no. That's why the CDC during the the last few years that we've been through, like I'd go there and I'd read their studies that they're like, check this out. This is what we're learning, and this goes against some stuff that you may have heard in school if you study, whatever. But then they look at it and the sample size is like, dude, you couldn't do this for a poll.
Yeah.
You couldn't use this as a poll. What the fuck are we doing? You're the CDC.
Well, the CDC,
I couldn't
the
believe
CDC
that.
and the FDA are from just me as an onlooker standpoint, they're rife with corruption. I mean, there's revolving doors between political offices and being on the board of the FDA and the CDC,
It's a
and that
revolving
should
door,
not be
yeah.
so.
It's in every industry.
There's no way. And I'm not sure. I don't think that that's a good thing. Like I try to err on the side of like, let's keep freedom as free as possible, but I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to saying, hey, if you are in a position of power in this field, you can't be in a correlative position of power in another field,
right?
Because there's no way that at the very least your bias isn't going to come into it, and at the very most you're not going to abuse those connections for the profits of a few.
Isn't it the same thing with the military-industrial complex?
Yes,
where it's
absolutely.
like Dick Cheney is the head of Halliburton, now he's also sending us to war, and he's in charge of that, and then he's back to Halliburton, and you're like, what? Is that? We're all looking at the same corruption, right? Is everybody's cool with that? Oh yeah, he's a good guy. No worries. But I mean, there's a medical industrial complex too. Like it's not the same where they have, I mean, Eisenhower wasn't warning us about that, but there is a lot of, they're not monopolies, but they, in a sense, they work like a cartel. They're just, the competition isn't there for a market. So if anybody wanted a free market medical system, like if they think that's what we have, it's not that, at least from my opinion.
No.
And so we like having a cartel makes it even worse because it looks like a market, but then we pay $10,000 for fucking slippers because we went to the hospital, or I got a $500 aspirin, and that kind of stuff. So that it seems like there's just corruption wherever things are important. So military industrial complex, medical industrial complex, educational industrial complex. They just, once you get your hands in there and you get some power in there, they don't ever let go, and it gets tainted, and I'm going off on a tangent.
So what's the
I think
antidote?
it's one of the things that's important to understand about studies is that you can get any outcome you want if you pay the highest price.
Right. Cigarettes are good for you.
Exactly. So it doesn't, you can have an idea for a study, line it up, and say the study doesn't turn out necessarily in your favor. You can cancel the study, have those results buried, and never to be unearthed again, and write whatever result you want if you have the money to do that. So, the study that has the best funding, wins, and essentially,
right.
It's all about who's funding the study and what the outcome is. People go into a study with an outcome already declared.
Yes.
And if the study doesn't bring the outcome that you're anticipating, then that's bad for them, and so that gets shelved.
I feel like in the social sciences you see that a ton.
Yeah.
So as a person that relies on science, like you're basically informing other people that are relying on you of science. What is that like to know that a percentage of that information is tainted by all that stuff? Like, how do you get around that, or how do you deal with that?
I mean, it depends on the topic. I tend to just speak to the topics that I'm really that I'm most knowledgeable about when I'm sharing information. If it's not something that I either feel comfortable sharing or want to share the lie that I know is being perpetuated, or whatever, I just refer them back to their doctor because
I don't want that shit.
yeah, I mean,
I'm here to help you. I'm
here to help you, and my integrity is important to me. And I won't compromise my integrity for anybody.
That's
so,
rare, though. I don't think that's a normal human setting all the time. So
Yeah.
Nice if it was.
it would. Yeah.
So, you know,
Respect.
there's things that I will happily give out information about things that I know well. But things that I'm asked to say, I won't do.
Nice. Is that come up very often, or?
It comes up fair enough. I mean, the people that I work with are great, and I'm not quiet. I won't die as a woman who kept her mouth shut. Be known as a woman who kept her mouth shut.
Respect again. Yeah.
There's just things I won't say or do in my job, and if they want them said or done, then it has to be by somebody else, because I'm not going to do it, because you're asking me to compromise my integrity or my belief system, and I don't do that for anybody, and I'm certainly not going to do it for my employer. And I at one point in my job said that heatedly in a meeting with my manager, nurse manager. She was several levels above me, but I just told her, she said, I don't know, we were going back and forth in a very heated manner, and I just said, you asked me to compromise my integrity and it was in an underhanded manner, and that I don't let anybody do that. And so if that's your expectation of me, then I can no longer be at this job.
Oh man, you give me so much hope for humanity. You really do. Like,
Well, I'm old.
I know that there's Americans out there that all of them, I mean, when you're put under pressure like that, it's like it's your job, it's your life, but they can,
Yeah.
anybody with that power.
Well,
But sticking up for what you believe is true is
your soul's worth quite a bit more than
It
your
is.
job.
Well, I mean, we're talking about, politics and all that. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's happened over the last couple of years, I mean, that really forced you to kind of change, didn't change your beliefs, but it kind of changed some of your stances.
Yeah, it was
to some
eye-opening.
degree. Yeah.
Well, it's pretty crazy. Before we got this started, we try not to talk about COVID too much here because the bots come and they want to tell us, that we're not epidemiologists and stuff. But
Which is true.
so it is true. But there's one study that I
Pay
can't.
attention.
I know. Thank goodness. That's all you have to know. It's not. There's one study. That's actually a poll or a survey kind of thing that happened. It was a pretty big one that we were talking about beforehand, and it was they asked Americans, and they based it on politics, left and right, and then independent. How bad is COVID? And this was like right in the midst of the stuff, but we had a lot of data from around the world. And they said, how bad is it? And I think it was over 40% of the left, the Democrats ish, said it was about 50% or so of the people that get COVID would be hospitalized or would die.
Right.
And the Republicans weren't much better. It was like 39%. And independents were better, but not even really that good either. They were like 10, 15%. But they were the ones that were closest to what was actually between 1% and 3% was the actual number, not 50% or higher, which is what half or more, because they broke it down like 50%, 40%, 30%. So a bunch of people were way off the normal 1% to 3%.
Well, and I mean, that's not shocking at all, given how things were just hyper conflated and hyper inflated and just made out to be, I mean, right out of the gate, before we even had really any solid data, they were just feeding it to the masses like it was going to be the next apocalypse, Like
Yeah, by the way,
people were like, "Ooh, COVID, zombie apocalypse, probably about the same."
About the same.
I'm going to break my arm, pat myself on the back. But I remember when you asked me that question, I said 1%.
Yeah. Well, we both knew because we'd been looking at data for a long time. But the correlation that makes it interesting. So obviously we were misled, not just a little bit. The data it's actually less than 1% now, but so far off that 50% and 1%. So a magnitude of ridiculous amounts. But on top of that, the correlation in the study that I saw, or not really study, it was more of an article. They correlated that. So obviously misinformed. And where did we get this information from? So they looked at the news media, and the news media in the United States, there's the ones that are informing us. The right and the left both did a terrible job, obviously. But what they found out was across the world, they looked at all the media sources, and when they had COVID stories, they looked at the positive and the negatives. A lot of countries had a mix of positive and negative in with their stories, where it's like, oh, this person got better, and this happened here, and it's not as bad as we thought, or da-da-da-da-da. The United States was over 95% all negative stories. And when you think about it, you can think of any of the ones that you've seen.
Yeah.
Like that's doomsday for quite a while there. But that correlation is probably the causation. It's literally, we watched the media, we got on our social media, we listened to people that didn't know what they were talking about or didn't care if they were right or whatever, and they misinformed us so far off that we're stupid, that we're completely ignorant about what happened. And so that's where my position is, where it's like, this data here, this is the only thing I need to know. We didn't know what we were talking about at all during the whole time, but we were very confident about how we said the bullshit that we said. And so it's like, fuck all y'all.
Very American of us.
I know. We're ignorant and we're fucking proud as shit of it, bitches. Get out my damn yard.
I want to go back to this food thing because
I want to ask her about that, but go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, ask her about that. Go ahead. No,
I
go
said all
first.
that because it's like we had a little bit of a conversation beforehand.
Correct.
So
We did.
what? How often did you feel like you were dealing with super misinformed people about that? Did it feel like that study felt real?
Daily.
Daily.
And I still am. I mean, there's still a lot of fear.
Is this
And,
still a big thing in the hospitals?
well, we still test every single patient that comes in for COVID.
Really?
Wow.
Every single patient.
And does that?
We're just now allowed to have visitors again for our new
Doesn't that seem a little
parents.
unreasonable?
I mean, I wouldn't have done it in the first place, but
Yeah, I wouldn't have either. I think watching Sweden, again, as you know, interested in the science, like Sweden had some initial deaths that were up from their neighbors for sure. But I guess at the end of this thing, their life went back to normal. They dealt with the inflation and stuff like we did and allowed the economic downfall. But they did things differently. And I'm so glad they did so that we can compare that. Because
the Amish did too. The Amish community, probably all of the Amish communities, but there was I can't even remember where I saw it, but they were saying, yes, we opted as a community or whatever to not get vaccinated, and yes, we lost a couple of people, and yes, everybody got it and everybody's fine.
I didn't know that.
Well, you said something else that was really interesting to me, where a lot of people in a pandemic or they would die in the streets, they would die at home, which people did.
Right.
But
Did they?
I don't know.
Did
You're
they?
right. You're right. I say that just assuming, right?
We heard a lot about hospital deaths, and that was there were so many things that kind of made me question the information that we were being given, and one of them was if this was a really fatal illness and you were just doomed if you got it, chances were you weren't going to survive, which is how they made it seem.
Yes.
Why weren't people dying in the grocery store? Why didn't the homeless population die?
Right.
I mean, not that I want them dead, but
Right.
really, there were people that are living high risk lives that all did fine.
Yeah, or any number of people that were deemed essential workers, myself
Right.
included, Jeff obviously included.
Yeah.
I mean,
Me.
cops
And
that were
yourself.
out
Yeah.
dealing with people. Yeah,
I didn't get a day off work for COVID,
Well, the weird thing, sorry to kind of,
unless
the
I
fact
had
that we're
COVID.
talking about this and that we're kind of like, we have to kind of like, oh, don't say it out loud kind of thing. I mean, we're doing it on
Yeah.
podcasts and stuff. But isn't that kind of strange? Like, we're questioning our government, and that used to be okay. And we're not questioning the science because we're all interested in science.
Right.
The point of science is to question the declarations of these
We're not
people.
allowed to question anymore.
Right.
Well, one of the first eye-opening moments that I had came from my daughter, who was a college student in Arizona, and she got sent home like they all did. And that was the first 2 weeks where we were going to stay home or whatever for 2 weeks. There was a phrase for it. I don't
Flatten the
remember.
curve. 2 weeks to
Right,
flatten the curve.
And so I was a little worried about work, what work was going to be like.
Oh, yeah, shit.
And if we were going to have enough beds. We never ran out of beds, just going to say that.
I wanted
Never
to
ran out
ask
of
that.
beds, never ran out of ventilators.
We were told that it was.
Of course we were,
yeah.
but we weren't. But we didn't. We also, anyway, she was a science major. And so I was.
What the hell happened to you,
not-
Jeff?
not letting-
Your whole family's a bunch of brilliant scientists.
I was a shithead.
not letting my kids go anywhere. I mean, I was a little afraid, and I think that was right where they wanted us.
I think we all were for
Yeah.
at least.
I mean, we
the
didn't really
early part of
know.
it.
We didn't know what we were dealing with,
Right.
and
We latch
so,
on to solidarity with each other. We're like, okay, we're in this together. We can do that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I was totally willing to flatten the curve for 2 weeks. I thought, okay. I mean, it didn't sound like fun, but shoot, I've done worse things for 2 weeks. I can do that.
For real. Yeah.
And so my daughter, who I think was 19, not quite 20. No, she was 20. Well, no, she wasn't 20. She was 19. Doesn't matter. She, I was having them, I made a 10% bleach water solution, and I wanted them to spray down all the handles, like the remote controls, the door handles, the cupboards, the countertops,
The groceries.
Well, I didn't go that far, but I never had my
These
groceries
apples
delivered.
taste nasty. Well,
Soak the bread in bleach.
they do.
buy bread.
They already do that. Sounds white.
Anyway, so they were home. All three of my kids were home, which was just such the blessing in the whole thing. But
Right. I loved that part of it.
yeah, it was great. But they were very compliant. Like, okay, Mom, we'll do that. And so they did for about 2 days. And then I was at work and I was texting them all and asking if they had done their bleaching for the hour or whatever. And my daughter, in the kindest, sweetest way, when I got home from work that night, said, Mom, I'm happy to wipe everything down for you a few times a day. That's just not a problem. I will do that if that's what you want. But do you remember that viruses need a host? So it doesn't really matter what they're telling us on TV. Viruses cannot live on a surface, period. They need a host.
Everybody in America for the first couple months were just going through their books and like, I went to school for this.
I know.
This is what's going on.
Well, it was the first gigantic light bulb moment. And I was like, oh my gosh, you are so right.
Yeah.
Stop. You don't have to bleach anything anymore. I will stop. I was getting undressed in my garage because I didn't want to wear my clothes that I was in the hospital, even though we didn't have any COVID patients. And we did eventually, but in those first couple of weeks, we did not have COVID patients on the unit that I was working in. And, I was still stripping down to my undies in the freezing garage. My husband would bring me my robe. My stuff would go right into the washing machine, and I would go straight to the bathroom and shower, and because it was supposed to live on your hair.
Yeah.
And like I realized, within a couple of days that actually was hysteria, and I wasn't going to participate in that. And
that's a crazy
fine.
component of the human mind that's not unknown to the powers that be that would seek to manipulate it. Is
electrocute
being able
people.
to I mean, I got like a crazy example of that in my personal
you.
life was my mom once upon a time was convinced that her house was infested with bugs, like fleas and bed bugs and what are they called, chiggers or the
Ticks,
little
chiggers,
yeah. And she was so convinced that she had she's like, I put my head against a headrest at a skeezy doctor's office, and then they're home, and now my whole house is infested, and I have to burn my clothes, and I can't eat, and she was like, I'm throwing up bugs that I accidentally swallowed and stuff. And I was like, Mom, I don't want to say that you're crazy, but are you sure? Are you sure about this? Because that sounds really extreme to me. And if you're really going through that, I'd like to help you, but that just sounds a little crazy to me. It was with as much love as I can muster when I say that. And this went on for not days, not weeks, but months with her until she ended up having to get psychological help to work through the fact that she was being hysterical about it because she had just been given this suggestion. And she went to see several doctors about it, and every single one of them told her, you don't have a bug problem that we can discern. I think you have a mind problem. And it's like something as simple as it being suggested that her house could be infested with bugs beyond her ability to get on top of, which can happen, but there's ways to solve it. It's not going to be like a months long, they're in all your food.
My wife did show me a bunch of bugs can get under your skin. Oh, fuck it. This is a weird planet.
Those are scabies and they're gross.
Oh, by the way, do you remember when Dad and I got scabies?
I do.
Yeah, Dad and I were living alone at the time. And, my father, I like to tease him about his OCD cleanliness. That was a rough couple. I mean, I was like 5 when this happened, and I remember it well. I mean, it was all the clothes got washed every day, all the sheets. I mean, it was not just take a shower. It was scrub it down, plus all the medicines for a couple weeks. We
had a huge scabies outbreak in the hospital in 2002.
Oh, wow.
And there was 2 nurses worked on 2 different floors, and they were married. And so the wife took care of a patient with scabies. she contracted it. She brought it home to her husband. And then it sort of went rampant. Then like all the nurses that were taking care of this patients were getting it. And so the hospital...
What a nightmare.
Yeah.
The hospital...
Darn it.
Yeah. Actually, well, the patient eventually went home and they were able to deep clean and it all got taken care of. But the hospital, this is in 2002. I was pregnant, so I couldn't take the treatment. But they said down in the pharmacy, they wanted every employee to come down to the pharmacy. They were going to check your name off. And they were going to give you a bottle of this highly toxic, as toxic enough that you couldn't use it if you were pregnant, lotion. And you were going to, bathe your entire family in this substance to, whether you had evidence of scabies or not, this was your duty as a hospital employee.
Okay.
And we got emails. Again, like I said, I was pregnant, so I couldn't take the medication, but I could email them back. And I said, how dare you tell me what is going to happen in my own home, with my own family, my own children. You expect me to treat them with poison with no evidence of my family having this infestation. I mean, if I had it, I would treat it, but we didn't. But that overreach, I was like, are you crazy? That is the most ridiculous thing I ever had.
They're like, we're just warming up, don't worry.
Right? I know. Yes. Then 18 years later. But anyway, so...
I guess it was a slow burn.
It was. So anyway, the next day they retracted their statement. I like to think it was all because of me, but I think that there was more than one person that probably said, you've lost your mind.
But it was all very sober, and they're like, oh yeah, we are stupid, aren't we? We can't actually tell people what to do just because we have a paycheck. Oh.
But point being, a little bit of fear pushed in the right direction can cause, especially when it's lots of people involved and not just one or two, it can cause
mayhem.
All kinds of fucking
to the right people. I mean, you really need in this day and age, again, in all day and ages, I guess, to have a strong self-concept and a strong constitution of who you are, what your values are, and where the boundaries lie between you and, your job and or whatever. I mean, you have to have firm boundaries because, and those that don't get sucked in, Yeah. And be a huge skeptic. And
always be skeptical.
Yeah.
Fuck.
That's how I was raised.
For example, let's go back to COVID for a second.
You want to go back to the data that I researched?
I would love to do some of that. Well, one of the things that I noticed, again, I have a mild background in a little bit of science that I love. Biochemistry was super fun. Epidemiologists, immunologists, virologists, they're all kind of in that field.
Jeff just got COVID.
Yeah, Jeff's a good example of cell malfunction. What I found, one of the things like you, where you're like, oh, I just can't believe that because it goes against literally something I know deep down, where it's
Correct.
like viruses don't live on fucking random stuff, was the epidemiologist. There's only, I don't know, guess, 1,000 epidemiologists in the world, 2,000 epidemiologists. It's not a super populated position. It's a difficult thing to become. When COVID happened, they shut down like half of them. Because there was some that I actually listened to before COVID and stuff, because it's like, I just want to check in and see what the science is saying about this and that. And that's like a Harvard epidemiologist that had published. He was like one of the most published, it was that story over and over again, not just in the United States and other countries, where it's like, okay, there's only 1,000, say. Wouldn't you want to hear all of them, since they're the only people on the planet that study this shit? You're dismissing half of them. Why?
Yeah,
because I didn't follow the rules.
Yeah, the fact that any of that was suppressed was really all I needed to know. All I needed to see to know there was an agenda.
They were called quacks by people that have no fucking idea what epidemiology is. Yeah. It's like, he's a quack because of this. It's like, no, he teaches epidemiology at the best medical school in our country.
He just doesn't fit into your ideology.
Exactly.
Well, and when I heard...
It's the study of epidemes, obviously.
That's right.
Well, of course it is.
When I was, I think when somebody gets blacklisted like that, that doesn't turn me off. That intrigues me because I'm like,
let me read more.
What do you know?
Same.
What do you?
It tipped
why
me off
are
rather
you
than turned me off? I was like, what's going on here?
What
I
do
still
you
do
know?
my skeptic brain on. It's like maybe they are wrong. Maybe I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
Like when the government's out, they're like, we care about you. We really do. I know we've never proven that we cared about you in the history, and we can't actually care about you because we don't know you, but we care.
Yeah, they
scientists are wrong all the time.
Yes, they are.
But they're still scientists, which in my opinion makes them still worth hearing out.
Well, the best part is that there's other scientists trying to figure it out.
The data will bear out. Like it's never a bad thing to have an abundance of data.
Right.
Even if you have a bunch of stuff that's
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
But being able to take a mean average of findings and opinions can be pretty illuminating, and you kind of muddy those waters when you just start going nope.
Yeah.
just because it doesn't fit the result that you're trying to get.
Right. Well, that's in a microcosm. That's what happened with the masking thing. We listened to Fauci, and he said, "Don't get those masks," because they were afraid that all of the nurses wouldn't get them and all the doctors wouldn't get them. And America listened, and they said, "Okay, I guess we don't really need masks. It's not that big a deal." The doctor that's telling us, and then a little bit later, he said, "No, we fucking need them. And if you don't wear them, you're a fucking leper messiah. Get the fuck out of our society." And you're like,
and then you need 2 or 3 probably.
Right.
Also,
and it kept changing and stuff. And that's back to another thing where it's like, okay, well, I know that an N95 mask can let shit in too. Like, but these fucking masks that I'm supposed to buy at the store, that's not.
That say on the box that they don't protect you.
Yeah, but I'm supposed to ignore that. And if I say that online, I get kicked off online. And it's like, they want us to be stupid? Is that it? Or
yes,
is it just
they do. You're easier to control when you're stupid.
well, my whole deal with
this planet? Fuck you, planet.
my whole deal
Stupid
with the mask
simulation
thing was like, listen, if you're worried personally, anything is better than nothing at all, I guess, to at least to some degree. Like if I sneeze and I'm wearing cloth on my face, less spit will get on you.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
shit's still gonna come through in a particulate manner. But hey, whatever.
No,
My issue was not with people having a desire to wear masks.
It's the science.
Nor
Tell
with
me the
them being
truth.
encouraged to wear masks. My issue was with it becoming like a mandatory facet of being able to exist in society. You know,
And they
it's just
didn't say the
that,
truth.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
The first time we were able to take our masks off, according to Jay, we were at Target, my kids and I wasn't wearing a mask because the second I didn't have to, it was off. And my kids weren't wearing them either. And so we went into Target and we're shopping around. And my daughter, the same daughter who said viruses don't grow on or live on surfaces, also said, she's a smart girl. She said,
is she gonna run for Congress?
I know shit.
she's smarter than that.
Good answer. Good answer.
She said, you know, it's really interesting, Mom. Nobody is, the only people that are wearing masks are my age. And she was, 19 or 20. She's 22 now, but no, the people that are your age aren't wearing masks at all. I'm like, yeah, because we get it. It's, we can see through this, and you guys and your whole generation is just drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, they're too young to have the experience.
They are.
Who could blame them, man? Like if I can't imagine being their age and going through all of that. Like I'm remembering the way I was at that age, and it's like, I mean, I was still a contrarian, but I didn't know shit, like if there was fear being applied and I was getting so much information from all angles, I'd be like, well, what's the safer bet? I guess I'll just fucking wear this thing. I don't know what's going on. This is beyond me,
But when we grew up, like, to rebel against society and our parents and stuff like that, we were like, fuck the system. Fuck these guys. Like, rock and roll, bitches. We're nothing like you guys. And like the rebels of today with all of the regalia that they have that shows how independent they are and stuff. It's like, you guys are literally mirroring the comments of the government, the biggest companies, the media companies. Like, wow,
that's all they know.
That's punk rock, bro. You guys are punk rock.
They don't have any idea what it means to like really stick it to the man. They don't. They
like,
think that they
you're
are.
A jerk.
I'm going to stick it to the man. I'm going to wear a mask.
I'm going to wear 2 masks. I'm solely sticking it to him. Not that it's bad to. I mean, and there's probably something wrong with all of us that we're contrarians, and there's probably something silly that we shouldn't.
There is nothing wrong with me.
There you go.
I'm perfect. We were born perfect children, obviously.
I gathered all your guys' missing imperfections and just forged them into one.
Use them as there you go.
One giant piece of shit.
And use them as blackmail later. All right. Well, I feel like we could probably go off on this stuff for a while.
I have a question before we leave it.
All right.
Did it seem to you, because you were working in hospitals
Yep.
during all of that?
Yep.
Because you said you didn't run out of beds, but were the emergency rooms overloaded with people who were going when they shouldn't really be going to the emergency room?
They still are. That
Yeah.
has not stopped.
Really?
See, that seems more dangerous to me than running out of beds.
Talk about that a little bit. I want to hear more about that.
The
I don't know that
ERs are a mess in our whole community. Oh gosh, you guys, this could get way onto a different tangent, but
That's all right.
but there's
That's
a
what we
lot
do.
You guys
of
called just a ride.
We'll do a loop-de-loop with you.
there's a lot of psychiatric stuff. I am not an ER nurse, so when I float to the ER, I go as a sitter. So I am to have eye contact, not eye contact, but I am to have my eyes on one or two people continually. They're in violent restraints, homicidal, psychotic, suicidal, alcohol withdrawal, all this self-inflicted stuff, and mental illness, but a lot of suicidal ideation and that sort of thing. The other day there were 30 ER pediatric patients. I think 8 or 10 of them were psych, suicide attempts, suicidal ideation, homicidal aggressive behavior, and so that was a third of the pediatric department. It's way more than that, and I don't know what the statistics are, but there's a whole lot more psych stuff in the emergency room than actual illness, like chest pain. And people come in because I think our medical system is so mismanaged. Like people come in for fever and chills. Well, in the olden days, like 10 years ago, when you had a fever and chills, you would call your doctor, get an appointment, and they could see you and or give you advice over the phone, or they could order that x-ray if you just, smashed your foot or, whatever. And now people go to the ER. You could, they would at least order the x-ray first. You can get the x-ray done. And then, in fact, your foot is broken. You need to go have it looked at, and it's the weekend, and so you have to go to the emergency room or whatever. But emergency rooms are used more like an urgent care,
Right.
And so
because people, if they don't have insurance, they know that they'll get it.
Exactly, or food,
Oh wow, yeah, no
or
kidding.
warmth. There was a man.
How we doing, guys? America.
Yeah, right.
We can
I
do
know.
better, I think.
Yeah, it's really sad. There was a man who was aggressive and kicking at walls and trying to smash windows and stuff at a local restaurant here.
It wasn't me this time.
In town. And
We can do it
the
tomorrow.
kids, running the restaurant called the police because they were scared, and they did exactly what they should have done. And so the police came and they picked him up, and he was very violent and very strung out on some sort of whatever. And they took him to jail, and the jail couldn't process him because he was still too violent. So to me, the most reasonable place to leave a violent person is in the jail, but instead they brought him to the
Yeah,
hospital.
think about that. You're too violent for jail. Does
So
that
that's
make a lot of
So
sense?
we'll take you to the hospital.
Well, and that,
So
and
it's
that
like a
comes
bunch of
from the call,
scientists
and that
still
comes
do.
from the call of the nurses that work in processing in the jail. If they can't get answers to the questions that they ask them, they'll just say, nope, you got to cuff them back up and take them to the hospital.
So we sedated the crap out of him, and he was on a gurney in 4-point restraints, and I never saw the whites of his eyes because he was out.
Well, I guess that's why they brought you to the hospital.
ketamine.
Like, they got the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he was out. But, but then when he wakes up, he's going to be raging
Just as bad,
again.
of course.
And I wish that our prison system would change I wish they would open a psych ward.
Yeah, that's a big problem in America. Why we don't have that anymore.
And it doesn't need to be treated like a prison.
No.
But people need treatment.
It's an embarrassing part of our history, the psych wards, because I could go off on a tangent, but I wouldn't know what I'm talking about. So here, I wanted to ask you something, if this is something that would be interesting. Like, I'm interested in what you think about this. The libertarian movements, there's lots of people that think like that and want to get the hospital, the medical and industrial system you can work outside of it. So some doctors will start a little private practice, and they will not accept insurance. Instead, they will accept insurance, I'm sure too. I'm sure some of these, but they basically started a co-op kind of thing where you see how much everything costs for the basic stuff. Like if you hurt yourself, basically the whole point of it was about 80% of the stuff that they say that hospitals generally do can be done through a phone call and with text messages and photos and stuff. And so most of it's that. And so they pay, like we would just pay $100 a month, say, and you get all this stuff, and then they give you a menu basically, or if you break your arm, it costs
like a
this
fee for
much.
service sheet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you know exactly how much you're spending out of pocket if you want to, if you have to. And when it comes to a big thing, then they have a kind of a group thing that they do as well, and it kind of insulates itself. I'm sure that because it's competing against medical industrial complex, that it's very difficult to do what would be an actual free market. But I looked around, and there's some here in Spokane. There's at least one in Spokane. What do you think about that kind of thing, where you're taking away from you're decentralizing it? Does that seem like a valuable thing? Or?
As long as it's
what are the
as
drawbacks?
long as you're getting good health care,
right?
I don't think there's drawbacks to good health care. I mean, preventative care is good, important. You don't need to go to the ER for a fever and chills or constipation or the things that people come in for are crazy.
But they don't have a doctor to call. If you could pay $100 a month and then be able to send a picture of your butt to your doctor and be like, what's going on here? I mean, that would be...
Yeah, I was going to say, that was probably
so
one of the
valuable.
strangest Zoom calls I ever had was when I had to call my doctor about hemorrhoids.
And he wanted to look at
over
him.
Zoom. Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
He's like, show me the butt into the webcam.
Funny, amusing true story though. I had to collect my own stool sample one time, which was just a very fascinating experience for me. They were like, yeah, we're going to need a stool sample. I'm like, okay. Like right now, they're like, no, we're going to give you a kit and then you're going to mail it to us. I was
You
like,
had to play with your poop.
yeah, I was like, you're going to I'm going to mail you my poop. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. We do it all the time. I
Look,
was like,
I only do that to congressmen. I send poop to congressmen, and
you
that's
should have
it.
seen my face when I'm asking these. I'm like, so what do I do? And they're like, well, just catch some. I was like,
What?
you just catch some? What
What
do
are
you
they,
mean?
Pokemon?
Just catch
Come
some
on.
fucking my own
them all.
poop. They're like, yeah, it's got to be before it goes in the toilet water. I was like, how? What do you want me to do? Just put paper towels on my kitchen floor and squat?
That's not where my brain went,
Take
but
a
I
little
get it.
scoop
I was
of
thinking,
it.
I was thinking litter box.
Yeah.
I'm not pooping in my hand, okay?
That's what catching it sounds like. Catch it.
No, that's what they wanted me to do.
Should I have a
They're
buddy
like,
come
just
over?
get a
What
bunch
are
of
we
toilet paper. Catch
True
it.
monkey.
I was like, that's not gonna happen.
I'll be too tempted to throw it at my neighbor.
And then and so then I'm like, I did it at work.
I should get this done on the clock.
I took my sealed sample box out and just put it on my desk in my office and let it sit there for an hour because I had to wait to go for a chance to go to the post
What's
office.
in the box, Shaiden?
So yeah, seriously, people come into my office like, what's that? I'm like, it's
Smell it.
If we sit here long enough, you'll be able to know exactly what it is. It's not sealed that well.
But I'd still kind of rather do that than waste a doctor's time, if I have to. If I can do it, I'll do it. It's,
So I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think, things are just so hard.
What keeps doctors from doing that, I wonder? From doing that more? Are they afraid of...
Well, money. I mean,
It's
I
so
don't know.
expensive to become a doctor. So.
It is. It's
Or a
expensive
nurse.
to become a doctor, and so then you have student loans that you have to pay back, and you have to be in the wheel, a cog in the wheel to pay back your student loans, and you can still make some pretty decent money, and you couldn't do that necessarily as a specialist, right? But as a general practitioner, you could.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it seems like they're doing.
As long as they're referring, appropriately to things that aren't, that are out of their scope, you have something very strange on your skin or whatever, and you really need to see a dermatologist. Then,
Well, yeah, how many times?
and then how does that get paid for? That's the other thing. So,
Right.
If you only have this, I mean, you would still have to have medical insurance.
Yes, I think so.
Or something, because you're not going to be able to, if you do have some sort of thing where you need to see a specialist, whatever it is, you're not going to be able to afford even the office visit.
Right.
Most people.
See, that's the reason they're doing this is a fundamental thing. It's partly to give people access that don't have insurance and stuff, and it's a different business model, but it's partly to help. These are libertarians, so they're kind of trying to change the thing. Like, why does it cost so much at the hospital? It's partly inflation, but it's not just inflation. It's because the government is involved and it guarantees certain things, and that just incentivizes people to raise prices. It incentivizes insurance companies to double bill or bill the maximum or do all sorts of weird things. And so this idea is they can't do it by themselves, so it is kind of a fruitless idea. And you're right. Like, when it comes to a big surgery, they paid $250 for their little thing that they did, and the doctor helped me, and then it's like, well, you got to pay $80,000 to go get your ankle fixed or whatever.
Well, and a perfect. I mean, how many times? I mean,
but they're fighting against that basically by doing this, by trying to make a true market that competes with it. People will be like, wait, it costs $3 to get an aspirin from Dr. Tim, but from Dr. Bill at the hospital it costs $300 or $300. Like, why? You know, it's part of the question where it's like, how come it's cheaper in Mexico to get these same pills, or in Canada? What's going on here? And it's like, well, it's not the greed of the corporation. It's partly that, of course, but it's this whole practice of the cartel kind of thing. So,
what do you think about there being like a fund that gets paid into from several sources that is specifically for covering like the very common emergency?
It's like insurance
services.
That's what insurance is supposed to be.
But I mean, well, yeah, kind of.
I don't have insurance. I'm part of a co-op. That's exactly what
That's
it
what
is.
it would be.
Yeah, and that's well, I mean, but so what I'm driving at is like, if anybody had to, like, shit that's not related to you not taking good care of yourself, like stuff that could just happen to anybody, like, you got to get your tonsils out, you got to get your appendix removed because it was going to kill you, you know, which just happened to me recently. You know, it's just like being stuck with a $40,000 bill for something that was not my fault. I had a vestigial organ that decided to try to kill me. Like, I take good care of myself.
It's your family line's genes fault.
It's not like I let myself get 500 pounds through neglect and had a heart attack. Like that, I mean, sucks, and I hope I can still get help, but that's kind of on me, you know.
Right,
like if I got stuck with bills for that, I'd be like,
or car accidents, or you know, I mean, accidents happen, and that's what insurance is for.
Yeah,
you know, to pay for those big
medical bills
shouldn't
so crush you,
though, because like, it's even after insurance, you still just like, there's like anesthesia is not covered under a lot of insurance,
right?
And it's like, okay, well, if you need surgery, you need anesthesia.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is.
If you're tough, you don't.
Yeah. Dad probably doesn't.
Yeah, right.
They wouldn't even let me refuse morphine at the hospital when I went. I was like, I'm fine. Like, it hurts, but I don't want it.
Because you're being a whiny little bitch. They got tired of it.
I was sitting there quietly.
Usually these people want it because of being whiny bitch. Like, I want to stop hurting. Yeah. You're like, I want to keep hurting. All right. Well, I feel like we could talk about all this stuff for hours and hours and hours. Yeah.
I'm still back on. I saw you light up when you brought up the food pyramid.
I just did a fake commercial about that because I called it My Ration Sack. That's the new thing that they're doing. Yeah. It's not, but they're like, eat the bugs, you can eat some grass, you know, blah blah. But they also had the My Plate. That came after, because there was the food pyramid, then there was my food pyramid, then there was My Plate, which was, I think, Michelle Obama. Yep. And I think that was just like, eat all the corn. I think that was just eat corn, you'll be fine. Just eat corn, because it was before that was eat wheat thins.
Corn, Zach. God damn it.
Well, before the food pyramid was, I remember being in high school thinking like, okay, I want to eat healthy.
I need 36 loaves of bread.
I'm going to quit. I'm not going to be an athlete anymore. I'm going to go play guitar. I don't want to get all big and stuff. What does it say here? Oh, I should eat 12 servings of wheat thins a day. Can do. That's a healthy.
Cheese whiz.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and a gallon of milk.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Lots of milk.
Right.
God, I drank so much milk because of those milk commercials as a kid.
It does a body good.
Not breast milk.
Yeah, well, that's why I have like man breasts, is because all the milk I ate.
All the estrogen in the cows.
I don't feel like
I'm not a baby cow, Shaiden. I don't know what happened.
I don't feel like we need the FDA.
No, I don't think so either.
Hot take. Like,
that's how all this started, was you asked a question about the FDA.
Yeah. And I feel like the FDA does more harm than good, personally.
I don't know what the good is that they do. I get the checks and balances. Like, we want somebody to checks and balance. But we don't live in a utopia, and that's what the market does. And we don't want people to be guinea pigs for it either. But industries in other countries end up regulating themselves, like in Sweden and a lot of the Scandinavian countries. They don't need necessarily the government to do it. Because I don't know what expertise a bureaucrat brings to the table. Like, it's like, are you a scientist? Then maybe. But if you don't want to be a scientist because you want to be a bureaucrat, what's going on?
The FDA is a government organization. Is that true or not?
Yeah. Federal, what the fuck is it?
The Food and
Drug. Yes, but it's under the Department of Agriculture, I believe. Okay. edit Health and Human Services, I believe, but
Yeah,
double
so
check me.
I don't feel like we need a government institution to explain nutrition to people or tell them it's not safe to drink bleach. I guess is what I'm saying. You know.
Well, I'm all for taking warning labels off of everything. So
Jeff's a big fan of natural selection.
He likes Darwinism. No, I don't know. We've gone all over the place, haven't we, on this one?
Yeah.
This has been a loop-de-loop. Thank you for joining us.
You're so welcome.
This has been a blast.
oh, we're not done yet.
No, there's still, yeah. We're going to talk about 75 hard a little bit, but there was another thing you're going to take us into, I think.
Yeah,
cis?
yeah. This is about cis.
Amazing story.
First, so there's a lot of us doing 75 hard, and I know we kind of pre-recorded this. So we'd be in day 40 something by the time this comes out, I believe.
Yeah, we're 3 weeks out on this one.
And my sister actually has already done 75 hard, and I believe you're going to do it again.
I'm going to do it
working on
again. I'm going on vacation, and then after my vacation.
Yeah, I saw that vacation. I was pretty excited about that. So, but I'm learning more about something that would you call it a deficiency that you grew up with, or would
It's
you
a
call
congenital anomaly, disease.
right? So,
I fucking love the word anomaly.
and understanding the difficulties that my sister grew up with, which now I'm going to let her tell the story ultimately, but she was able to do 75 hard growing up with some incredible challenges to where like she couldn't raise a glass and toast it, or I can remember her having to do her hair with her elbows on the counter to brush her hair, or she couldn't, be at just.
I couldn't take
on
a
her hands and
selfie.
knees.
I can take selfies now.
Yeah, it was pretty
You're
awesome.
taking a few today. Huh?
So
Yeah.
anyway, so they growing up as a child, they believed you had.
So yeah, I guess it was around 8 or 9. I think it was around the time our parents were getting divorced, so it wasn't the best time of my life. I do know as an infant, I didn't walk, or as a child, I didn't walk till I was 18 months, and I never crawled. But they, I'm 55, so they didn't put a lot of thought into that kind of stuff like they would now. Like if that happened to a child now, there would be all kinds of therapy involved, physical therapy and stuff. And then when I was 8 or 9, maybe 10, I can't really remember, people started noticing that my gait was different.
Explain what a gait is.
The way I walked was different. And I didn't notice. I mean, I didn't know. And so I'm not sure who brought it to our parents' awareness, like who brought it up to them. But they decided that they were going to have, take me to doctors and see if there was anything that they could do. And so I went to neurologists. I had muscle biopsies done. I had another, like an CGM, or I don't know, I can't remember what it's called, but they put like needles into different muscles to test the electromagnetic abilities of my muscles, that I would flex with these needles in my muscles. And I was young. I was, 9 or 10. So it wasn't the most pleasant. You felt a lot like a lab rat.
Yeah, I bet.
And lots of doctor's appointments, and they never really came up with anything. And again, this is back in the late 70s probably.
So, but then Uncle Bobby and Mom also had the same condition.
Yeah,
correct?
my mom has it as well. Although I don't know. Our walk is different, I think. And then my uncle, the same thing. Like he's kind of a burly guy, physical guy, but it's he has it kind of differently than I do, or than Mom and I do. But anyway, so I went to neurologists, and all this stuff pediatric neurologists had all this stuff done. And the only thing they came up with was, well, she has muscular dystrophy. We don't know what type. There really isn't anything we can do about it, but she'll just do what she can. And, we have no answers for you.
Right.
And so,
Just what you want to hear.
right, exactly.
After
I mean, I
20
didn't really think anything of it. It was like, well, whatever. So there's been limitations that I've lived with my whole life. Like, it's not a mistake that I work with infants and healthy women. Like, I could not do CPR on a person that needed, I can do it on a baby, but I couldn't do it on an adult, not in order to save their life, just because I don't have the upper body strength to, lean into the chest the way they're supposed to. So I get tested on CPR every 3 months. And I've managed to pass all these years, but I cheat. So And I could never really snow ski, but I always tried to stay really as active as I possibly could. So I mean, there are things that I can do. So I
Yeah, but you couldn't even
power
like
walk.
adjust your rearview mirror, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
you
So
couldn't-
it's
you
like
couldn't raise
shoulder.
your
Yeah. It's like
arms
shoulder
above.
girdle muscles and pelvic girdle muscles were affected. And I learned that the more I learned this after 75 hard, and then it all started making sense. The more you use the muscle, instead of getting stronger, you feel more fatigued. Which for 75 hard on my outdoor activities, I just walked. I power walked. I have a lot of hills in my neighborhood, and of course it was snowy, so that was hard. But and anyway, so on day one, I did not feel better on day 75 than I did on day one. In fact, I felt weaker. So by day 75, getting up, I just have a porch and a step up. I was having to get support to do that step. Like I have a pillar that I kind of had to grab onto to get up that step onto my porch so that I could get in my front door. But I don't know, that just really wasn't all that abnormal for me. But I was expecting to feel better on day 75 than I did on day one. But I didn't. Anyway, that's another story. Anyway, so my mom recently went to a neurologist for an issue that she was having. And she ended up telling her neurologist all about this muscle weakness because as she's gotten older, she's lost a lot of muscles, as we do when we age. But her strength has gotten...
More so than normal, though.
Yeah, a lot, much, much worse. And so she was asking about that. And so he said, well, there's a lot of new diagnoses, a lot of new medications. Let's see what we can do. We'll test you for everything that we know about muscular dystrophy. And so they did her genetics. And it came back, there wasn't one muscular dystrophy on it. They're like, they're like, we don't know what you have, but it isn't muscular dystrophy.
For decades,
So,
you're like, oh, great.
Yeah. And they're like, so let's do other tests. And so he did other tests and found out that what it is congenital myasthenia gravis.
Common spelling on that, right?
What?
That's a common spelling on that.
Yeah, myasthenia, myasthenia. And anyway, but the good news is that there's medication for it. So what's been happening my entire life is at the nerve and muscle junction, you have amino acids that are there as communicators. And one of them is acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is, I have too much acetylcholine inhibitor, which is called acetylcholinesterase. And so it would inhibit some of my muscles and nerves from talking, so the muscles were never getting innervation.
Oh, no.
Right. So there are things I couldn't do. Like one of the things I regret the most or feel that like makes me the saddest if I think about why I didn't get this in my 30s when I was having kids is that I could never like do this with your babies, like throw them up in the air, and like I could never do that, which is kind of sad because it brought them so much joy. But their dad got to do it with them, so that's good. But anyway, that's a little thing on the grand scheme of life. But anyway, so the doctor that diagnosed my mother said, who else needs, might have this? I want them to do genetic testing for your diagnosis. And so she mentioned myself and her brother, and we both got tested, and mine and my uncle's are exactly the same. Hers is a little bit different. My uncle won't take the medicine because he's weird, and my mom is having issues with the medication, but I'm taking the medication. I take it every 6 hours.
We just saw you put your hands above your head.
I know, and I can take selfies.
Yes.
And I'm in physical therapy, and I was hoping it would be a quick fix. I don't know that. I don't think it will be, but that's okay. I'm in it for the long haul.
It's 55 years of atrophied muscle that she now that gets the opportunity to build.
So I'm doing a lot of PT. It's great, and I love it, and I'll do it until I have results or don't have results. I'll give it, a good couple of years, and if nothing ever changes, that's fine. I feel great. Like I feel amazing. I feel like my energy is so much better, and I feel
like a
great.
whole new lease on life.
It is. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
so
just
you take that
amazing.
kind of thing for granted too. It's like, I'm
Right?
gonna take a selfie today. And
That was the thing too. I thought, you all feel like this normal, like every day you guys feel this good, all you normies, you feel this good, you all suck.
That's why we drink Mountain Dew, so
Yeah,
to bring
right?
it down a bit. Yeah.
And you guys, nobody has an excuse for not exercising. Sorry, you don't.
Right.
You don't. you don't have an excuse to not take care of yourself when you feel good. Because I did it and I felt like crap 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So it made me
And
pretty
worse
impassioned.
by the end of it too, because you didn't know what was going on.
I did 75 hard. I don't know. I just wanted the challenge, and I've been a wife and a mom for 24 years at the time. I think I just wanted to do something for me, and that's really what 75 hard was about for me. And so I did it. I was super dedicated. I never had a restart. I didn't even drink wine on my 25th wedding anniversary because it wasn't on the program. So it was.
I remember your last day. You were so sick.
I was so sick. That's right.
You were on the
forgot.
treadmill, and you're on the phone with me, and you're crying. I'm just like, how much further? Come on, just keep going, just keep walking. And she was just dying on
I
that
was
thing.
miserable. That's right. It was my second. It was my second to last day. And then the next day, I felt fine and completed it. And that next day, which was it the 17th or 18th of March? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
17th. We started on the same day.
I think it was St. Patty's Day.
So that day, March 17th, was the day I started my Facebook page, The Keto RN, because I think a lot of physical changes happen for a lot of people on 75 Hard. I had some physical changes, like my pictures they're decent. My before and
I thought
after.
your before and afters were huge.
Yeah, they were pretty good. But what happened to me emotionally, and like when you complete something like that, you're one of few. You're not one of many. You're not. It's not normal to be. To do that kind of dedication and all of that. But my kids had left home. I was a wreck. I needed to focus on myself and do some personal growth and get some boundaries and discipline back in my life, and think about and take care of myself, because I hadn't. I mean, I'd had my kids at home, and I loved that time of my life, but it was a new phase, and so. So I wanted to do something big, and that's what I did. And then that next day, or the last day of 75 Hard, I can't remember which, I started my my Facebook page, and I just got brave and decided to start telling people about keto lifestyle, and that's been amazing.
Tell us a little bit about
where
your
do they
page,
go
actually.
first? We've said that once, but let's
so
keep it fresh.
My Facebook page is called The Keto RN, but if you put in Jen with one N, Jen the Keto RN, it'll bring it right up. There's more than one Keto RN. But yeah, so now I have over 17,000 followers, and I post live videos, and I've recently gotten into Reels. I've had a few go viral, which is really fun.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy.
Very cool.
I talk about kind of all things related to the keto diet. I do a live almost every day. Usually I'm making dinner, like tonight I did one on the salmon that we made for dinner. It was really good. And then also selling my ketones, my exogenous ketone
talk about
business
that a little bit too.
That I started kind of around the same time. So I am a promoter for Prove It, and I sell exogenous ketones, and they have been huge in my life. Those actually, I've been drinking ketones for about 3 years. But again, sort of another low point where it was right before the world shut down. But I was just struggling more with hormonal changes more than anything. And I was tired. This is despite the new diagnosis. Tired, not really wanting to do a lot, kind of cranky, putting on weight, and then I didn't know why or where it was coming from, because nothing had really changed, and just not feeling that great. And I had been doing keto. I was also working night shift, and that probably had something to do with it. But I had actually transitioned off of night shift and was on day shift, and I thought I had put on like 10 pounds or so on nights, and I thought, well, when I get it to days, it'll just fall right off. Well, that didn't happen. Because women don't just drop weight after 50. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
And so, and I had done keto and lost like 30 pounds and had kept it all off until this night shift stint. And I just was like, something has got to change. And I found this product, and I thought, well, I'll just try it. It's like $100. I have nothing to lose except $100. And that's not that big of a deal to me. If it brings me, if it helps me, it's going to be worth it. And so I ordered these ketones. I thought, well, they'll probably taste terrible. They're probably not going to work. Me being the skeptic, right? I'm sure, whatever. But again, there was still something that was like, you just don't have anything to lose, so just give it a shot. And so I did, and I drank them. Like I got them a couple weeks later, days later, whatever. Drank them, and I was like, oh man, because the first thing I noticed was that my brain felt better. Like I could focus, like I hadn't been able to focus. And then my mood was better. Like I felt really happy. And so I'm telling this person that sold them to me, I'm like, I feel like amazing. And they're like, yeah, it's amazing. But it's because ketones, which everybody can make, they're produced in your liver. Mm-hmm. If you're not eating very many carbs or sugar or drinking alcohol, or you're fasting, those are the times that nobody fasts anymore. I mean, I think it's kind of catching on, but a little bit, yeah. But biologically, exactly. Biologically, we are not meant to have food available to us 24/7. We're just not meant to. We're also not meant to eat food out of packages. Mm-hmm. And so
there's a couple Southeast Asian countries that basically a fast day during the week is a normal thing. A very big part of the normal diet is a fast day.
Yeah. Once a week, 24-hour fast once a week is what I do. And I do some intermittent fasting about 4 days a week, but 5 days a week. Anyway, so what I learned was, I learned a lot in a short amount of time. Ketones are the preferred fuel for your brain. Ketones are made by your liver, and everybody can make them, but nobody does. And they make you feel freaking amazing.
It's because we're eating Doritos too much.
Exactly. Takis and Mountain Dew. Yep. It's so true. I mean, that's the diet of all of the teenagers. And we talked about that gut-brain axis in neonates, right? Tiny, tiny babies, and that it causes inflammation and is bad for their brains. Well, that doesn't stop when you're a neonate. That their gut-brain axis is there always. And the next, I'm convinced that the next wave of people who get into keto are going to get into it for mental health because of what it does for the brain. It is amazing. And ketones just lit my brain on fire. I felt energy that I hadn't felt. I was sleeping all of a sudden because I really couldn't sleep, which was why I was up scrolling Facebook at 4:00 in the morning or something. I couldn't sleep. And, and so it's corrected my sleep, the appetite control. They don't make you so that you're not that hungry. So if you are fasting, they prolong your fast. They don't break a fast. They provide your brain with 30% more oxygen. Sheesh. But you can, ketones do that, but nobody wants to do the work is the thing. Nobody wants to make the effort. And because we have a society that is absolutely 100% addicted to the sugars and the chemicals that they put in food, nobody can come off of them. I mean, it's hard. I did it. It's hard. I stopped eating sugar for Lent. I gave up sugar for Lent in 2016, I think, or 2017. Yeah. And I had a headache for 6 days. Like, I didn't know.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was like, what is this? But I didn't know at the time. It was withdrawal. Yeah. And so I'm like, well, then I can't really go back. But my brother had lost a ton of weight at some point. So I thought he had done the Atkins diet. So I remember calling him and saying, what did you do? And he's like, oh, I did keto. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll try that. And now I've just made it my lifestyle. And I won't tell you that I'm like a perfect, keto diet person. I'm not. I make mistakes often.
It's a foundation for a lifestyle.
Exactly. It is and I have truly embraced it as a lifestyle. And the ketones just make that easier and just so much better. And they taste great. So there's lots of good flavors.
I was going to ask that. Like, how was the taste?
They actually taste really,
awesome,
really good.
Actually. And I'm currently not on the ketones that she sells, but they're phenomenal. They are really good.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can tell because you're not thinking clearly, buddy.
Right. You're not sleeping well.
I'm not sleeping
so
well.
Anytime you start talking about like diets and lifestyle changes, there's inevitably it comes up the caveat that everybody's body chemistry is different, right? So have you are there people whose bodies are not well suited to a keto lifestyle in your opinion, or is it more ubiquitous?
I think that human biology is about 98% the same. So I think maybe there's people that have allergies.
Sure.
Or maybe there's people that have preferences. And that's fine. If it's not for you, don't do it, but do something.
Sure.
Do something. Stop eating out of a package.
Yeah.
Like, we have so much power. I think that's a huge problem with the American population right now is we don't know the power that we have. And power lies in dollars. And so if you were to stop buying Oreos would stop existing.
Yeah, let's stop making Oreos and they'd make something that is good for you.
Right?
Do, you know.
I mean, we have more power than
There's
we
a lot
realize.
of people that are like, those are fighting words with Oreos.
Well, I know,
Have you
but
tried
whatever.
the thin Oreos? Those are very good.
But whatever it is, I mean, it could be, like you said, Doritos or Lay's potato chips or whatever. I mean, there's so much food out there that is good and tastes good. But I think when people are constantly putting chemicals in their mouth, and that changes your palate, and so you don't taste how good. The salmon that I had tonight was fantastic. And we had air fried Brussels sprouts with olive oil and salt and pepper. And that was it. And I've always eaten pretty healthy, but I was fat. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I lost 30 pounds. It wasn't like I was some skinny bitch. I wasn't. I never was. I was teased as a kid because I walked funny and I was fat.
Yeah, I was going to say,
man.
I mean, since you from 50 to now, I mean, you have developed and are in the greatest shape that you've ever been in your whole life. You always struggled with weight your whole life.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was just because of your condition, which I think was a main
That's probably part of it.
that.
Yeah. But yeah, now I have no excuses and I feel better than, my 50s have by far been my best decade and I'm only halfway through them. So
That's awesome.
And there's just been a lot of personal growth too. I mean, I will tell you that being somebody in social media marketing or community-based marketing, whatever you call it, where you're getting on a screen in front of people that you either know or don't know and talking about a product that you love. I mean, you can talk about a movie that you love and it's socially acceptable. You talk about a product that you love and people think you're a scam artist.
You're getting paid for it.
Exactly. Like you're a
It's just
scammer.
probably working for the oil companies.
Right, exactly. And
Well, there are an unfortunate number of people that are scam artists in
That's
those
true.
things.
That's
so
probably
it's like-
true, but
being
that's
skeptical
not.
is good,
but that's not me. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just not. I think everybody should drink ketones because they're so amazing for your brain.
I'm going to
But-
get some immediately. Yeah.
But I am not easily swayed or sold. And so for me to believe so passionately in anything, it's real. I mean, it's been real for me. All I can tell you is my experience. And then the experience of the customers that I've had who have had their lives literally change. And so it's amazing.
And you and I were talking the other day actually about like opiate people that have been addicted to opiates.
Right. So there's a whole community of people that are former addicts that use ketones, that love ketones because it lights up their brain.
Nice.
Right? ADHD is the other one. These people that took ADHD meds growing up now don't take ADHD meds. They drink ketones and they probably follow a keto diet. The keto diet, do you guys know where it came from? Are you guys familiar with you don't know?
I just
origin.
So
like a
it
cool
was
thing to
developed
do.
in the early 1800s. I think in the 1820s. I may be mistaken, but in the 1800s at some point. I'll have to look it up. I don't remember now. That can't be right because I think it was 1900, around that time. Anyway, it was developed because there were children who had seizure disorders that they couldn't stop their seizures with medication. And they were doing studies on these kids and they found that if they didn't feed them, they would not have seizures.
Starve the children.
Right?
See if that helps.
Right. So, and these are kids with
Stop moving.
intractable seizures. So seizures that did not react to medication. And so then they fed them the highest fat because our brains are fat.
Right.
The highest fat, lowest sugar diets they could feed these kids and still get them to grow and have a normal, brain development and body growth and that sort of thing and hit puberty and all of that. And it was the ketogenic diet. So it is a medically documented. Now, I don't think that everybody, anyway, it's a medically documented diet that has stood the test of time.
Yeah.
that is not why people are doing keto now.
That's kind of fashionable.
Right, but
Some
it
of it.
should be.
Yeah.
I mean, not just for seizures. And I don't think that people need to be into a state of ketosis that is that deep. Like these kids couldn't mess up. Like you could not go off your ketogenic diet because you would have a seizure.
Well, ketosis and the keto diet are a little different, aren't they? Because the ketosis, you can't do
there's
ketosis for
and
very
there's ketoacidosis.
Okay, like the ketosis is something that you just cut out carbs and all that stuff, and
you will go into it. That's making ketones, but
eventually you don't want to stay in that specific place.
Well, I think the goal is to be metabolically flexible, and because I think even our ancestors were metabolically flexible. Like they primarily lived off of what they killed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they used the entire animal for, the skins and the, all the organ meats and the horns and the hooves and
haggis.
Right, the bones. I mean, it all got used, but that's how they primarily lived. There was no agriculture, so they would eat roots, and if they came across a tree, like an apple tree,
they would
then they
gorge
would
themselves
then
at
they
that
would
point,
have
yeah.
apples. So they were primarily, and they walked, they moved, they hunted,
Yeah.
they
didn't
foraged.
need to work out because their life was work.
Exactly. Their life was work. And they didn't have washers and dryers even. They had a lot of stuff that they had to do and get done.
You can't put a deer hide in a washer.
Right,
It doesn't
exactly.
work very well. It shrinks them. They don't fit. They don't cover your junk anymore. It's a problem.
So anyway,
That's how you became a bear.
So we would have more. So they were more metabolically flexible, and by that I mean you can go into ketosis rather easily, and you can come out of it when you come upon that fruit tree. But
Right.
also apples now are the size of your flippin' head. They used to be the size of like plums or apricots. They were small, like more like crabapple size. But now we've modified them to be the size of dinner plates, and so you can eat an apple and have 120 carbs. Well, that's more than I want to eat in like 4 days.
Right.
So
They should have seen bananas, right? Fuck, they had seeds
Right.
and there were just little fat things. With,
So I have a question actually, since you're bringing up fruit, because probably since I lived with you, Jeff, my diet's been pretty close to some form of keto. Like I've gone through periods of being like strict, no sugar, no bread, and then I've gone through periods of like mostly that, but I'll have a pizza once in a while, kind of shit, and then I correct as needed. But I know that any processed sugar is essentially kind of poison for you.
sugar is poison, period. It's not me.
But it's my understanding from just shit that I've read that sugar in fruit is metabolized differently than processed sugar.
It's not.
No.
I mean, it all goes through your liver.
Well, the fruit has fiber in it. And
That slows the absorption.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
it. That's the difference. That's why.
Yeah. So like blueberries, the blueberries have that. They're lower sugar content, so I will eat blueberries on occasion. But they have that beautiful skin. So the worst thing you can do to a blueberry is put it in a smoothie. You should, if you're going to eat blueberries, you should eat them whole and chew them because the skin on that blueberry slows down the absorption of the sugar into your bloodstream. When you macerate them,
it's a Mountain Dew.
it just goes straight into your. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a blueberry smoothie, but I don't drink them anymore. I'd rather eat a blueberry. But yeah, and same with a baked potato. Like if you're going to have a baked potato, you had best be putting butter, sour cream, bacon bits, like anything that has fat to slow down the absorption of that highly starched white flesh that tastes amazing. I also don't really eat potatoes anymore, but if I did, I would make sure that they were loaded,
just balanced out with fat,
yeah,
basically.
you want to slow that absorption of that starch and that sugar into your bloodstream as much as you can.
I want to throw something at you.
All right.
So back to the biochemistry thing. One of the things that I kind of got from it was that there was 5 major poisons that we eat as people, and there's all sorts of complex things to this, but sugar, white flour, hydrogenated oils, milk, and coffee was on that list too. As a
Don't mess with my coffee, man.
I know my wife is absolutely a coffee aficionado, and she's not a fan of that one. But those things, as white flour works in a similar way to how sugar works to the body, and it ends up coming down to like a lot of insulin stuff, like.
Well, right. That's what it's all about. The whole goal of keto nowadays, or for me, I should say, is really about keeping the pancreas quiet. So So when you eat sugar and carbs, your pancreas secretes insulin. And the job of insulin is to open your cells so they will accept the glucose, right? Because you need glucose in all of your cells to make your cells run and make them, perform efficiently. And so without glucose, we would die. But your liver makes glucose. It's called gluconeogenesis. It is a biological process that happens to everybody, whether you're eating sugar or not. So it always happens. Keeping your pancreas quiet, though, you want to secrete as little insulin as possible.
Right.
So, because your cells will get everything that they need, and when people are getting into like type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance, it's because there's nowhere else like this. The insulin has opened the cells so many times. The cells are at capacity. They cannot accept any more glucose. So then they start putting it into your muscles, and then it starts getting deposited into your liver. So we have more people with fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, than we've ever had, and it's based on
Doritos.
Exactly, donuts. All of the Starbucks mochas. I'm not slamming Starbucks.
When I learned
mochas.
about cells, I was like, I figured out some of the things that make up the cell wall. And basically, my whole life, my cell membrane was made of like cookie dough materials,
Right.
basically. And it's like, well, that's why I'm getting sick. The foundation of the cell to keep out the thing has got holes in it because it's cookie dough. I shouldn't probably make my cells out of cookie dough.
No,
but
probably not.
One of the things I learned was basically like, almost all sickness is cell malfunction. It's your cells malfunction, and they malfunction of two ways. There's like 60 things that every cell requires. Most of our diets in America don't have that in the West. But basically, either if you're getting sick, you either don't have enough of a nutrient that you need, or you have too much of something that isn't a nutrient that your cells are, replacing cookie dough instead of, omega-3s or whatever. So is that what you would? I mean, that's kind of what I got from biochemistry was like, if you want to be healthy, you want healthy cells.
Yeah.
So if you want healthy cells, you find the 55, 60 things that your body needs. You try and find the right ratio for them.
Are you talking about like the 37 nutrients? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, they're literally like, it's like 60 different
Is it
things.
that? I thought it was only 37. But
Well, in your cells, from what I understand, it's between 55 and 60 different things. and
it's
whatnot.
more of a question.
But that's the thing.
assume
Like
I was
a
wrong.
lot of people will find. I remember there's a lot of quacks in this too, where they're like, vitamin C, you just take a bunch of vitamin C because you're missing that. And it's like, no, because you're probably missing, because you get plenty of vitamin C really in your life. Like it's probably some weird B thing that you don't have, or some maybe omega-3,
micronutrient.
omega-9.
Yeah.
You're not getting enough of something. So I know.
It takes work to eat a balanced diet because our soils are so depleted that our vegetables don't have the micronutrients that they had 30 years ago and 50 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
Farming is just so different now that we've lost a lot of that.
On top of people not eating those things anymore, too,
and that's
right?
that's
like, oh, shit.
that's the truth. I mean, our diets as Americans are terrible, and I could go on and on and on about how bad they are, but and that kind of goes back to the food pyramid. I mean, the food pyramid is really upside down, and it is. And and you'd want to talk about, if there's, you essentially, I mean, you are what you eat, and so yes, you're any illness
That's
can
why
lead
Jeff's a
to
dick.
can lead to can lead to. I mean, you can have. I can't remember what I was saying. Yes.
You are what you eat.
You are what you eat, and our diet is crappy, and it can really just. We're also not eating for our health. We're eating for pleasure.
Yes.
And out of habit, and because we're addicted, and so
The tiny bit of dopamine we get when we have a Snickers, right?
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
We have a society that celebrates everything with alcohol and food.
Right, and so, and I'm not opposed to celebrating. I mean,
Sure.
I think that's important, and ritual is important in families and
But maybe not a pure
around the
sugar
holidays.
cake. Maybe
Right. I mean, I don't know. I don't even think cake's bad every once in a while. Like that's my thing.
Maybe
too.
every day shouldn't be a ritual.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Every day should not be a ritual, but we are. Who even knows what wellness is? Because because people are making themselves so sick by the choices they make every day.
Even
You
if
know.
they look healthy too. That's
Right.
A lot of people.
Right. Oh, there's a
look healthy.
lot of skinny fat people. I mean, there's like 88% of, and this was pre-COVID, 88% of Americans had a were metabolically unhealthy. So that's, you know, like a systolic blood pressure over 140, so that's your top number. A waist measurement over 34, I think, if you're a woman, and 37 if you're a man.
Nice, just squeaked into that. I'm 36. Yeah.
Feeling good too.
Like I can't even remember all the things, but there were five things that they tested, you know, people on, and 88% of them pre-COVID were unhealthy. And I think that's really scary, and that's really sad. And
then 2020 happened, and everybody could only shop at Walmart. So they're like, "Oh, there's no real food here." So it probably got worse.
Right. Well, the other thing they did was that they wanted to support their local restaurants, and so they, like Uber Eats and all those food sending services, delivery services, did not do anything to improve the American diet, when we should have been
Nor to closing down gyms.
walking outside. Yeah, exactly. So don't go to a gym, walk outside.
Right.
You know, you couldn't do that without a mask, although I didn't know that, so I did it anyway. But we should have been cooking at home. And I mean, that was our chance, right? Cook at home, make your own meals, and get your exercise. And it just, and instead what happened was daycares were closed. So people are trying to work from home with screaming toddlers and barking dogs and
Homeschooling.
and then they couldn't get to the grocery store. So they ordered out all the time. Like, I get it. I understand why it happened, but it's a shame. It didn't have to be that way.
I don't want to sound like off base here or anything, but I was doing research on Disneyland for this week's show. That seems off topic, but I was watching a bunch of videos. And I don't know why I thought this. I remember seeing a meme where it showed people from, I think, 50s, 60s on the beach. And it was just skinny, healthy people. They were
Hairy, but skinny.
They were very hairy. With short shorts like you like.
I still am.
But I saw this video of Disneyland, Disney World, and it was just Main Street, and it was thousands of people walking, and it was just a guy holding a camera, and I was just trying to get like what it looks like because I'm pretending I'm there and stuff. And there wasn't anybody in shape there. Very, very few.
In shape or out of shape?
Everyone was out of shape.
Oh.
Like big time.
This is a recent picture.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this was absolutely
The
like,
today picture.
Yeah, this was
Yeah.
2022 kind of thing, and it just dawned on me. It's like, man, we are like, this is a big sample study. I mean, it might just be this group of people who go here, but I like Disneyland. And da-da-da. It was just kind of strange because that same kind of thing where there were 1,000 people on the beach, they were all in some kind of shape, like a pretty good shape for today. And considering how good a shape people can get in, and with all the technology and stuff, it was mind blowing to see that Disney was like,
Well, there's
filled
been a
with
decay on the other
unhealthy
side of
people.
that shit too, because there's things that were then considered to be agricultural waste that are now being pumped into like food products of ours that they have no business being in. I mean,
We're going on corn, aren't
corn
we?
syrup, yeah, for sure. Is an
He wanted to get
example.
to it 20 minutes ago.
You know, but you know what I mean, right? Like, and it's all profit-driven bullshit. You know, it's just like, oh,
Well, they
how
made a
can
food pyramid about it, for Christ's
instead of us paying to get rid of this waste, we're being paid some pennies for it, but fucking whatever. We're still, you know, when you have barrels and barrels and barrels of this shit, we're getting paid to essentially dispose of it, and then it's just getting worked into cheap food products.
Yeah. And then we're paying for it. We're paying for it twice,
yeah.
because
The
we're
healthcare.
paying to eat it, and then we're paying for the consequences that we suffer because of it. And somebody had said
Which
to
is
me,
trillions.
somebody had said to me, I mean, it's brilliant if you think about it.
It is brilliant, you're right.
And a healthy patient, you know, reaps no revenue.
I was just going to bring that up earlier.
Yeah.
They're the product half the. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can be very cynical, but it's true, because the information is out there. People just need to find it. But you know,
We have to,
sugar
a lot of us
addiction's
have
huge.
to fall. A lot of us have to
Yeah.
hurt and really have to be at the bottom to pull ourselves up.
I find it interesting. Here's my sister, who's been a nurse for, I don't know, since Jesus was born. And
1989. Wasn't that long ago.
and
Below the belt, foul.
family, they
loves
can do
her
that.
job, but still sees all the errors of the ways of the medical community. Just like I was in law
Well, I
enforcement.
probably see him better.
Right,
Yeah,
but
right.
and being in law enforcement, it's like I really see the errors of the ways of the government
Yeah.
in trying to help people, how fucked up they are.
Yeah. We're just kids. None of us are adults. There are no adults. Einstein was the smartest guy at his time. He was not an adult. Sir Francis Bacon was not an adult.
Cool name, though.
Isaac Newton never had sex in his life. He died a virgin, but he's this, he invented calculus. We're all children. There are no fucking people who have any idea what the fuck's going on here. We don't know why we're here. We don't know what the purpose is of why we're here. We're just throwing shit at the wall, hoping it sticks. But ketones are important. So let's
Ketones are important.
and avoid sugar.
and
it's-
avoid sugar.
We're not really taught anything. I mean, at least I wasn't. I'm the youngest person at this table, which you would
Let's kick his
think,
ass.
which you would think we had at least more resources available when I was in primary school and secondary school, for them to be like, here's what we know about nutrition, so that you're
No,
not
you got the
you're not
food
fucking
pyramid.
yourself over. And it's like, no, I was taught little to nothing of any real substance
Right.
of how to fucking take care of my body. Everything that I know, which I'm still not an expert, obviously, but everything that I know about health and nutrition and personal fitness was shit that I have had to teach myself.
Right.
And,
So true.
And that's fucking shitty, especially when on the other side of that coin, they're going out of their way to poison us for the sake of their profit.
Dude.
These industries. And
The other
these,
one you had talked about was something about oils. What'd you say?
Hydrogenated oils?
Or seed oils in general.
Mm-hmm.
I just did a live on my show or on my page that was all about seed oils, and there's like sunflower, safflower, canola, corn. There's a couple
Cottonseed,
others.
coconut.
Oh, coconuts. The only
pretty
ones I
good.
use are in cooking and in life: coconut oil,
Olive oil.
olive oil, and avocado oil, and that's
yeah.
it. And the rest, like canola oil. Have you ever?
Canola oil makes me sick almost immediately when I eat it.
If you want to find some, if you want to watch you want to know why, there's a couple YouTubes on how canola oil is made. And it literally is this slimy sludge that they pull off of the equipment, and then they bleach it 1,000 times, and
It's that
and they
agricultural
have
waste I was talking about.
But do you know why it was originally created, canola oil?
To use as fuel, I think, for
For lubrication,
Vehicle, yeah.
for mechanical parts.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Sexy
okay.
Yeah.
I remember they were going to use it in
No,
cars
that's
to
that.
fuel it
Yeah.
too.
The bottle right
Yeah.
there. That's the same thing as sex oil.
So it's the whole food
Investigate
system
what
is
you
corrupt.
put in your face.
What?
Investigate what you put in your face.
Right,
Sorry.
exactly.
She's like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, I know. I'd say things very crudely. I've been very good today. I must. No.
You've been well behaved, actually.
I haven't said the C word once. I haven't said fuck.
Oh yeah, you guys haven't. I was warned, and then I did not.
Hold on a second.
Okay, cunt.
And then we went completely
We
Australian.
have to
fucking-
hit our quota.
I have another question. Hopefully, I didn't cut you off on a thought that you had. I know.
No, I was just saying.
I tripped you out for a second.
No,
You're like, what?
seed oils are. So the other reason I do, or the other benefit that I've noticed from doing keto, is decreased inflammation. And inflammation, you were talking about like the root of all sickness. I really think inflammation is huge in there.
Is it B6? We get too much B6. Is that what it is? And you have to counter it with B12 or one or the other. It has to do with one of the B vitamins. I think.
For inflammation?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea. All I know is that if I eat inflammatory foods like sugar, I have arthritis in this joint and on my finger, and it aches like crazy if I eat too much sugar. Like this one stupid little joint controls my whole life. It's insane.
I know that vibe.
But inflammation really is like going back to that gut-brain axis. I mean, putting improper things in your gut leads to inflammation all over your body. And then we get sick.
Yep.
And there are so many sick people right now, and a crumbling medical system and a food pyramid that is absolutely upside down because somebody lobbies for sugar and somebody else lobbies for grain. And neither of those things need to be in our bodies.
I wonder if that's why we're able to buy the dumbest possible propaganda in the history of mankind so easily.
They used to
today. It's 'cause
advertise
we're really dumb.
cigarettes. Doctors used to advertise cigarettes.
Sure,
as
but they're
smoke
fun,
to
and a
relax.
doctor told them it was cool. So it's like,
Yeah.
that's
They
not
They
necessarily.
make you look really badass, though.
Yeah.
I have one more question before we
Okay.
kick out of here. And I was studying biochemistry at the time when my mom went through some stuff way before she died. But I went in there and I was kind of a dick about it. That's why I wanted to ask. But because I listened to a doctor talk to my mom, and not one time did he ask her about her nutrition, what she put in her body. And I was blown away by that because I was studying what I think is the key to the health of the human body is knowing what your cells are doing. And I was wondering, so I looked into it, and there's not a lot of nutrition training for a doctor. With all that medical school, they don't spend that much time in nutrition, and yet like the biochemistry is like the key. And they spend time in biochemistry depending on what they're in, and you have to know some just to get through medical school. But has that changed at all? Are people looking at no?
No, I mean it really hasn't. And what's really sad is that even dietitians are taught to educate toward the food pyramid. And one thing that was
Wow.
it's backwards. It's really sad. And
Eat the
so
bugs.
one of the things no, don't eat bugs. One of the things that has happened over my pretty long career is back in the early 90s, and I don't know exactly when it changed. When people would get diagnosed with diabetes, we would tell them, well, you have to eat a low-carb diet. This is just what you do. You're now counting carbs. This is, of course, way before apps and all of that, on your phone that would calculate all that for you. So it was a lot of looking up things and memorizing, that, a cucumber, a half a cup of cucumber has however many carbs it has. And they became carb counters. And then they based their insulin doses on how many carbs they ate per meal, and they were given a goal. You should aim for 30 or whatever carbs per meal, and maybe 2 20 carb snacks or something along those lines. I'm not sure of the exact numbers. However, at some point in my career, diabetes education completely changed, and now they say eat whatever you want, and you're just going to cover it with insulin. So, but right. And so that's what people do. And so we wonder, so what happens when you oversecrete insulin? What follows insulin is fat. Where insulin goes, fat goes. And so that's why people that often have type 2 diabetes are also heavy. Not always, not 100% of the time.
Right.
But, and then they tell them to start insulin, which makes them put on more weight. So it's
It's
backwards.
counterintuitive. I mean, it's
There's people
counterproductive.
out there though.
It's like-
It is. There is a big low carb movement. There was just a seminar in Colorado that I would have loved to have gone to, but they have there's some low carb doctors out there. There are. You have to find them, or doctors that will respect your decision to be low carb or keto without giving you.
Why aren't they? Like it feels kind of corrupt because that seems pretty obvious to
Well,
the
again,
public too.
a
where it's
healthy
like, well,
patient makes no money.
Yeah.
That's. I thought
I
that
know,
was the
it's
truth, and that
cynical.
sucks so much.
And it's going
it's
to put
really,
Nabisco out of business.
Yeah,
Well, there's
fuck 'em.
things that you can do. Like so growing up, I had hypoglycemia. I had doctors tell me that when I was just a little kid, like when I was a baby, if I go too long without being fed, I would just start screaming my head off, and as soon as I eat, fine again. I remember in
You are a
elementary
moody,
school.
hungry guy.
I remember in elementary school, I'd go if I went for too long without eating, I'd start getting tunnel vision and like cold sweats, and I'd shake, and I just would like my mood would just dip. And as soon as I eat something, I was good. And so I kind of grew up dealing with that, and then my mom ended up developing diabetes. And my dad is still, I mean, I don't know. I actually haven't asked him about it in a long time, but he was hypoglycemic for my entire childhood. And it's he's just like, he always had a jar of peanut butter because he would just like take a scoop of peanut butter. He's like, oh, I'm good to go.
Hydrogenated oils.
Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah.
His cell walls are made out of peanut butter.
Yeah. But,
God, Adam's Crunch is so good.
And that's only peanuts and salt. It's a good one.
yeah. So, but in the last several years of my life, it's gone away completely, and it's just been because of like I was looking at the writing on the wall, and I'm like, well, I don't want to end up with diabetes or have to deal with this shit all the time. So I just adjusted my diet, to the point where now I can go for days without eating if I want to fast, and I'm perfectly fine as long as I'm drinking water.
Yeah.
And but it's that old saying: a teaspoon of prevention is worth an ounce of cure. You know, it's like
we don't do that.
I pay so much attention when I'm in the grocery store because I've watched my journey in the grocery store go from my early 20s when it was just all the packaged side of the grocery store,
It's next to Pepsi.
cans
Somehow
of
it's next to
food,
Pepsi,
pouches of food, boxes of food, right? And then now, when I go to the grocery store, I barely leave the produce side of the store.
You shop the outside perimeter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then I get to, and I'm the odd man out when I do that. When I'm in the store, like I went to Fred Meyer last week. And I got up there and I'm looking at the stack ahead of me, and it's the kind of shit you'd expect.
All boxes.
Cookies,
Right.
chips, boxes, bags.
You feel weird.
Boxes of individually packaged.
And then
items.
I'm there, with all of my fucking produce and
It's rolling all over the place because you don't put it in a bag.
That guy's like, what a soy boy.
And then the fucking check stand person that was doing bagging looked at all my stuff and they were like, man, there's a lot of refrigerated items here. I'm like, yeah, that's because they're not supposed to last that long.
I was talking about inflammation real quick. It's God, I kind of wrote this down. We have too much omega-6, I believe it is, in our diet.
Omega-6 fats,
which causes us to be inflamed.
Mm-hmm.
So you should take,
and not enough 3, right?
Relay, so you need
effect,
the ratio is supposed to be 1-to-1.
Yeah. There's a thing called Udo's oil that when I was trying to eat biochemically correct, Udo's oil has a pretty good ratio of 3, 6, and 9 omega fats, and it's like.
You can eat fish.
That's it. That's what it is. That's what it is. It's fish oil, basically. So yeah. But,
and the other thing is, you want to reduce your cortisol levels. Men our age, not quite your age yet, take magnesium and vitamin C before you go to bed.
And meditate.
shit, yeah, that's what I do. Or smoke a big fat bowl.
Big fatty bowl.
It's immediate meditation.
I meditate almost every day now. Like I've always dabbled.
I meditate once. I didn't really.
I quit smoking weed years ago. Not because I wanted to, but I just listen to my body.
Yep.
Same with coffee. I love coffee. I miss coffee, but I haven't drank coffee for
Thank
years.
you, sister, for laughing at my stupid joke.
Doesn't agree with me.
I was listening to the speaker. What's going on?
I said you're talking about meditating. I said I meditate once. I didn't really like him. So it was really dumb. It was bad.
That didn't deserve acknowledgement.
It was a dad.
You're right. We had to hear it twice.
Yeah. I only know one Tate. No, I guess I know two Tates. Okay. All right. Well, I think we have definitely had ourselves a ride. Thank you so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. You're eating food. Don't talk. She says thank you back.
Zach's practicing to be a waiter. How is everything?
Don't let me know. Just leave me a big tip later.
First time I ate, I took a bite of a sausage. It's keto.
It's bare.
All right. Well, how do they get a hold of us, guys? What's the email?
It's at it's justaridepod@gmail.com.
Where do they find our merch?
They can find our merch at SKATCAST.com.
SKATCAST.com. And where's a good place to support what we do?
That would be patreon.com/justaridepod.
And just share the show.
And share the show.
Share the show.
Share, like, subscribe. If you guys... Every time you guys write those reviews, that helps us so much, too. It actually puts us up in rankings. And as you guys know, listen to the thing that we do in Patreon, we've got a couple big companies that are asking to advertise with us now, which is kind of cool. So
and we want to be the very best one. Okay,
but one of them actually competes with one of my companies because we sell beard and ball hair oil for humans, and they do as well.
Conflict of interest.
So I don't know, but I do like money.
We can have a ball oil off. A ball oil off. That's not.
We got bigger balls.
We're making a porn, right? Is that what I'm getting?
I don't know what's happening anymore. I've lost complete control of my mind. But all right, you guys, thank you for being here. Thank you to our trusted turd triad, Don the Shipbox Wizard, and Chris the Discord Dookie Slayer, and Bodhi the Quartermaster. Thank you to the Godhead and to the Garbage Disposal. Thank you to all the groups that are out there sharing stuff and doing cool shit for SKATCAST, smearing the scat.
An extra big thank you to our patrons on Patreon.
Huge thank you. And thank you to the Fat Cats, all of you guys, and the SKATCAST one as well. We appreciate you. Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome. It was so fun. I want to come back.
I was going to say, I guarantee the listeners are going to want to hear you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guaranteed. I can feel it.
And one last time, where can they find you for all your stuff and things?
Oh, that's so awesome. So I am Ketogenics on Instagram. I am the Keto RN.
Jen Keto RN.
Jen the Keto RN for Facebook. I also have a blog. I didn't mention my blog. All the recipes that I do and that is also www.jentheketorn.com.
Awesome.
And then your
And yeah, there's if you get on my website, there are links to my ketones, but really you'll get the best service if you just put a message in my box, and you can like and follow my page.
Please do, guys. Hit that thing like crazy. Get there as fast as you can. Right.
and just like with these two guys, this is the time that my sister and I get to see each other. Because I happened to see you last week, but
First time.
I hardly ever
Yeah.
see you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to have you back for sure.
I would love it.
It's
It'd
been a
be great.
blast.
Yeah.
All right, and as always, let me try that.
Let me tell you something.
We'll talk at you in the future.
It'll seem like the present.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Just a ride. Whoa, oh, it's just a ride.
Bing.
Bong.
Oh, that was short and sweet.
That's perfect. Teamwork.